And on this sunny Silverstone summer Sunday, welcome to our home. Not just Martin and I's home, but the home of the Formula One World Championship, the place where it all began, where Ferrari weren't here on the 13th of May 1950, but they've been making up for it ever since, and where they start on pole today on a track where they've taken 14 victories in the past. It's Silverstone, it's British Grand Prix Sunday, and here's the circuit. 52 laps around this 3.66 mile track, 18 corners, 8 to the left, 10 to the right, 2 DRS zones along the Hangar Straight and along the Wellington Straight. It's windy and it's gusty, why not? It's an old airfield and it features some of the greatest corners on the Formula One calendar. Let's go back to last year. Turns 1 and 2 are Abbey now. This is Perez and Raikkonen having a terrific scrap as Perez dives down the inside. We should go to Copse, shouldn't we? Lewis Hamilton on the inside of Max Verstappen. Verstappen sent crashing out of the race. Hamilton picked up a penalty, went on to win the race. Verstappen arrives here this year with a 46-point lead in the World Championship. And Lando Norris and Fernando Alonso into the Vale chicane they go. The penultimate corners in this race. Lando holding off Fernando there. Could they have a similar battle at some stage today? There is spots of rain in the air, but it's a gusty day, and if it does rain, I dare say it's not going to last for long. So we're going to have the dry tyres to start with. They're the C3, the C2 and the C1. The favoured strategy, a one-stop strategy, but let's wait and see. Here's the starting grid then for the 73rd World Championship British Grand Prix. Lance Stroll starts right at the rear alongside Mick Schumacher, and both Aston Martins out in Q1 for a second race in a row. Sebastian Vettel starts alongside the other Haas driver, Kevin Magnussen. 16th on the grid goes to Alex Albon, knocked out in Q1. Esteban Ocon, with his worst ever Silverstone start, starts 15th. Ahead of those, Daniel Ricciardo knocked out in Q2 for the third time in 4 races. He keeps Yuki Tsunoda company, while ahead of those, Tsunoda's teammate Pierre Gasly and Valtteri Bottas with his worst start here since 2014. Into the top 10, and Nicholas Latifi starts 10th for the second time ever. Zhou Guanyu for the second race running, his best ever start. George Russell has a best start here at Silverstone. He's 8th alongside Fernando Alonso, who was 7th on the grid last year. Lando Norris 6th on the grid alongside Lewis Hamilton, an all-British third row. Second row, Sergio Perez with his best ever start here, and Charles Leclerc for the first time without grid penalties away from the front row this year. Max Verstappen will start second alongside Carlos Sainz, his 150th Grand Prix, and he starts on pole for the second race running. The pole sitter begins his 150th race. You couldn't write that script, Martin Brundle. I don't know what the script writers have in store for us this afternoon, but this is the race we look forward to more than any every year.
Absolutely, and as we saw last year, starting from second on the grid is quite handy. There seems to be plenty of grip over there, but especially as Max Verstappen starts on the soft compound tyre. Remember, this year they can start on any tyre they want. Mediums for pretty much most of the grid. Nicholas Latifi on the soft, but interestingly, George Russell on the hard compound tyres. So all 3 compounds that are available to them are on the grid, so different ideas out there, but that'll give Max Verstappen a couple of 3 meters extra grip down into turn 1, and that'll get as soon as Carlos Sainz hears that on pole position, his heart will sink a little bit, because that's a big advantage away from the line, the extra traction of those soft compound tyres.
He's got it all to do now, starting on pole position. His team have had it all to do to get Charles Leclerc ready for this race. Ted Kravitz.
And they have, Crofty, and they have. So Panic resolved a electronic control unit that wouldn't actually let the car fire up at all. So it was mission critical to Charles Leclerc's race. And as we go 15 seconds now to the formation lap, the dance music is off, and we've just got the roar of 20 V6, 1.6 litre V6 engines. So here we go.
And Damien Lewis from the world of billions comes to the world of Formula One. It's quite fitting that, I suppose. It's away they go, and Max Verstappen, in such a hurry to get on with it, is already ahead of Carlos Sainz. He's going to have to let the pole sitter come back at him. A formation lap to get these cars all prepared and all in the right shape. And there's Nicholas Latifi starting 10th. Last time he did that was Belgium for the race that in the wet we had no overtaking. He's going to be right in the melee, and there's a lot going to be trying to make places early on here.
Yes, I'm not sure he's got a car that's fast enough to be in 10th place in dry conditions. Let's see, that might be underestimating me. He hasn't got the new parts on that particular Williams, but as they leave the grid, you see people standing alongside the grid. They're obliged to stay on the pit lane speed limiter until they pass pole position. So 50 miles an hour basically is all they can do until, as you see so many people standing alongside the grid, if you were wondering.
So what do you make of this today then? From what we hear in the paddock, there are lots of people, lots of drivers going into this race who feel they've got quite a chance here. Carlos Sainz, he led 17 laps in Canada. He's never led more than that in his entire career. Max Verstappen knows what it's like to win from second. Charles Leclerc goes well here. Sergio Perez is a very creditable driver, and behind him Lewis Hamilton going for a record 9th win at Silverstone. Who do you favour? Who do you fancy?
Well, I think it is critical for that Sainz has led Grand Prix and not just the one. So, you know, you break through glass ceilings in terms of getting to the end of a Grand Prix, scoring points, scoring a podium, race victories, a world championship, and Carlos is through a few of those ceilings, so he won't be intimidated being at the front or by actually his former teammate Max Verstappen. And there is Checo as he starts on the medium compact tyres in the second Red Bull. But yeah, so I think he can handle it. He can handle the pressure up front there. If he can zoom around the outside of turn 1, but as we know, they can keep coming back at you on the first lap of this Grand Prix.
So 400,000 fans here at Silverstone across all 4 days. I'm told 142,000 fans in today. And it's been brilliant to see them streaming through the gates ever since we got here first thing this morning.
So the risk of rain was listed as the same as VAT over here, 20%, but that's gone away now apparently, sadly, unlike VAT.
Right. It'll be taxing nonetheless for all involved here. Last man to win his maiden race from maiden pole, Pastor Maldonado, Spain, 2012. What can Carlos Sainz do today as he lines up on the right-hand side of the grid as you look? Max Verstappen pointing pretty much straight ahead and looking to make gains on the soft compound tyre going into the first corner. Lance Stroll still steadily making his way to the grid. Those front runners are going to be on the grid, standing stationary for some time.
Yeah, they're a long time forming up. We saw Anthony Hamilton there, Lewis's dad, of course, looking on, and they were very disappointed in qualifying. I think the Mercedes is much faster than 5th and 8th.
Here we go then. This is what we've all come to Silverstone for. The British Grand Prix, and it's lights out and away we go. Sainz gets away well, as does Lando Norris, as does Lewis Hamilton, who's already ahead of Charles Leclerc, and Max Verstappen into Abbey takes the lead ahead of Carlos Sainz, and at the back that's George Russell out of this race, who's finished in the top 5 in every race this season, but he's out by the time they get to turn 1. Off the track there goes Charles Leclerc, and rounds the corner Lewis Hamilton battling away with Charles Leclerc, who's on the inside, and the red flag has now come out to make racing redundant.
Yeah, the car was upside down that went through the gravel. Looks like it might have righted if that was George Russell's car that was upside down. And yeah, there's marks on the rollover.
I think it's Zhou Guan Yu who's also involved with this.
So certainly something in the background went into the gravel upside down. George Russell running over to see if he can help, maybe. No.
So we've also got the Alpha Tauri of Yuki Tsunoda involved, and you can see the damage there to his front wing. We've red flagged this race. First time in a few years we've had a red flag on the first lap. Remember, Kimi Raikkonen went into the barriers at the start of the Wellington Straight. We had quite a lengthy delay while they fixed the barriers. But we saw George Russell going across the gravel. Zhou Guan Yu involved. And also down there, that is Alex Albon in the Williams. And I wonder if Esteban Ocon is also involved. He's going very, very slowly, Esteban Ocon, down the Wellington Straight currently. So Yuki Tsunoda, George Russell, Zhou Guan Yu, Esteban Ocon and Alex Albon seem to be the drivers that have all been involved in this first lap incident. And we wait to see how the young Chinese driver is in the Alfa Romeo in a race he calls his second home race. There you can see the damage to Esteban Ocon's car, the front right tyre bravely hanging on.
If it's a track rod and there's no other structural damage to the wishbones, they can fix that quite quickly. You come into the pit lane, everybody has to stay in the fast lane. If you do move over to have some repairs, you then will have to start at the back. Somewhat irrelevant now at the moment until we find out that Zhou Guanyu is okay. George Russell apparently was engulfed at the start, starting on those hard compound tyres, remember, the less grippy tyres, but maybe had some other start issues as well. So I suspect that it might have been sort of 4 into 1 doesn't go into what is effectively almost a flat-out first corner. So they must now stay in the fast lane, and we're in under now the red flag procedures. That's where you see them, and they can work on the cars there, but if they have to trolley them back into the garage, you then, I think it's pit lane start at that point.
Yes, we will get going again, and when we do get going, there's the standing start option, but tyres obviously can be changed during this red flag procedure. We wait for news for Zhou Guanyu and for George Russell. We've seen the Mercedes by the side of the track, and we saw in the background from the start the Mercedes going over into the gravel. George Russell walking back to his car now, as you can see. Disappointment for him in his first British Grand Prix as a Mercedes driver. His run of top 5 finishes ending at the first corner here today.
Yeah, I think he was running over to see if he could help. So the car is trapped between the protective barrier and the main Armco barrier, and we await news.
I'm told that the extraction team have arrived on the scene and are very carefully putting the Alfa Romeo right and turning it from its current position, but they'll do that very, very carefully indeed, and make sure that the driver inside is absolutely okay, doesn't suffer any injury. So a red flag for which Max Verstappen had taken the lead. Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton had got past Charles Leclerc, and he was dicing away with Charles Leclerc when the red flag was flown, and Fernando Alonso making up places at the expense of Sergio Perez and Lando Norris. Nicholas Latifi up into 8th place, Valtteri Bottas to 9th, Daniel Ricciardo into 10th, Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll making moves along with Magnussen from the rear too. We can see Alex Albon's Williams, we can see George Russell's Mercedes, and we'll bring you news on Zhou Guanyu just as soon as we have it.
Yeah, so they can get to work on that suspension now. They've left it in the fast lane, so they'll be able to restart, and then they'll follow. They'll be given a notice, a period of before the restart, and follow the safety car out. And then I'd be very surprised if it wasn't declared a standing start again. Then, so. We've got an hour and 59 minutes 39 seconds of this race that's got to take place within a 3-hour period, so 6 p.m. UK time.
So whilst that 3-hour clock continues to tick down, the 2-hour race clock, as it were, has been stopped at 1 hour 59 minutes and 39 seconds. Jos Verstappen in conversation with his son. Max Verstappen going for a 27th Grand Prix victory here this afternoon. If he does manage to achieve that, that will be equaling victories along with Sir Jackie Stewart. They're still working down at Abbey to put right that Alfa Romeo of Zhou Guanyu. As I say, we'll bring you news just as soon as we have it on his current condition.
The rollover structures are heavily tested and very specific in their structural stability, and because they're aided now by the halo as well. The concern you always have in a single-seater upside down in the gravel is that obviously the rollover hoop can go into the gravel and submerge a little bit, but there's a lot of support around that, and as a very concerned Tom Cruise looked on with Toto Wolff there, Lando too, and everybody will be very, very concerned indeed until we get hopefully some positive news.
We've already seen the halo introduced a few years ago very much prove its worth in an F2 race earlier today. with an incident between Hauger and Roy Nissany. The halo very much saving Roy Nissany from serious injury. It's become very much a part of not just Formula One, but single-seater racing now, the halo. And yes, there were those that weren't totally in favour when it was first introduced, but I don't think anyone would argue against it now, that is for certain. Let's just hear some team radio.
Yeah, so I picked up some debris on the way, so just when I got back, have a look.
Yeah, we'll check in the pit lane.
Does this mean we start again? V2, I guess. We are asking.
Exit of turn 3. I was in side by side, and obviously Lewis just did like if I was not there, so I hope they are looking into that.
That's what's been said over on team radio. Ted Kravitz is our man down in the pit lane. Ted, good afternoon.
Hello, Crofty. Yes, hello, Martin, everybody. So the damaged cars are being repaired of Yuki Tsunoda, Esteban Ocon, and there is a lot of concern amongst the drivers. Pierre Gasly has gone down to the Alfa Romeo Sauber pit wall and asked whether they got a radio message back from Zhou Guanyu. And I'm afraid to say, because I'm stood on the other side of the pit lane, that I don't have an answer of what they said. But Gasly's got his answer and has now gone back to his pit wall. So I can't give you any more details than that. Either way, there is now an ambulance going on to the main straight. You can probably see it out of your commentary box window, going down to the incident site. So yeah, as soon as I get some information, or any of us do, I will let you know. But
I can give you a little bit of information, not just yourself,
Yep.
Ted, but everyone watching around the world. Zhou Guanyu is still in the car.
Yeah.
And the medical doctor, Dr. Ian Roberts from the FIA, and the extraction team are working in quite a tight, confined space to try and do what they need to do, which is not exactly aiding them, but as far as I'm aware, Zhou Guanyu still in the car and not a huge amount of space to work with, which is why we can't, well, we haven't been able to show you any pictures, and we haven't been able to bring you any more updates further than that.
No, I have sent a message to the team asking whether they heard from Zhou Guanyu on the radio afterwards, which obviously would indicate whether he was conscious at the time of the impact, or still is, and but I will wait to know as soon as I get back.
We're just seeing some replays of the start. Charles Leclerc struggling off the line. Max Verstappen getting past Carlos Sainz, going through Abbey, and Lewis Hamilton up into third place. This is how it looked on board with Sergio Perez, and he had a pretty poor start as well.
Yeah, that opened up a beautiful gap for Lewis Hamilton. Had a great start to get through, but almost stalled it out there, did Sergio. And he loses another place then to the Alpine of Fernando Alonso, but steams back up the inside of turn 3.
Alonso staying ahead though, keeping that fifth place. What a Lando Norris.
Yeah, Fernando, he's always pretty punchy on the first lap, isn't he? And there he goes. Yeah, so he managed to, he's then got the inside line down into 4. Sergio thinks better of getting too involved in that one. Long way to go in the Grand Prix, but of course the red flag has now been flown at this point of the Grand Prix.
I can give you some very good news. Zhou Guanyu is not only out of the car, he's been taken out of the car on a stretcher, but he is moving. And the news from the Alfa Romeo Sauber team is that he is okay. He's been extracted on a stretcher and is now out of the car, which is as much good news as it is a relief, as it is heartening for a wonderful young driver and a brilliant human being as well, that he seems to be okay from what we are hearing currently. And an incident involving himself and George Russell, Esteban Ocon and Alex Albon also getting tangled up in that incident right at the very start of this British Grand Prix. If you're just joining us, the race was red flagged as soon as those cars disappeared into the gravel, and the FIA doctor on the scene, the extraction team on the scene, and working successfully to get Zhou Guanyu out of that Alfa Romeo car. And he is now being taken into the ambulance, one of 2 ambulances that are down on the scene. As you can see, applause from the British fans around the track as they see what is happening and see that Zhou Guanyu is moving and is conscious and is out of that car. So we wait to let the experts, the officials, do their job well before any news of a resumption in this race. And as Martin was saying just a few moments ago, we have a 3-hour window for the race to be running in terms of 3 o'clock, the starting time. So we must be finishing at 6, but within that 3-hour period, there is a 2-hour race clock that has stopped at 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 39 seconds.
Yeah, and of course it's a very fast race anyway here because of the high-speed nature of the layout of Silverstone, which is the 4th longest circuit on the calendar. And so George Russell's car is back. My understanding the regulations is that cannot be repaired and rejoin the race. It did not come back to the pits under its own steam. So that's his first DNF, did not finish of the year, and unfortunately in front of his beloved home crowd. So bad news there for Mercedes-Benz and George Russell. As I was pointing out, there are a lot of different tyre combinations on the grid.
Yeah.
And a few drivers struggling to get away anyway. So George still in his crash helmet, obviously. Okay, so he's had a certain amount. He's been. Right. So I think they can start the car back up. What George is saying there is, look, I stopped to help the other driver. I didn't stop out on track. So he'd imagine you'd struggle to get back with that left rear. But he's saying, I stopped to be the good Samaritan. Now you're saying I can't restart the race because I didn't come back under my own steam. But I think he was also being told there you need to go to the medical centre. So maybe there's been a G recording on the car that suggests.
We saw George, didn't we, in the background going into the gravel. I don't believe he hit the barriers in any way, but I think your point is very pertinent, Martin. He would have struggled surely to get that car back without a huge amount of damage, given the rear tyres.
Yeah, yes, that would have. I think would have done some more damage. But anyway, his car came back on a transporter. It will not be allowed to restart because you can refire. A lot of these cars now, they use the battery pack, and they can fire the cars back up themselves. But that wouldn't have been easy to get back to the pits with.
So Kravitz, let's head back down to you.
Just caught, hello Crofty, just caught a quick shouted across the pit lane word with Fred Vasseur, the team boss of Zhou Guanyu, and I said, is he okay? He said yes. I said, was he conscious throughout? And he says, I think so. So that is good news, not only for Zhou Guanyu and any impact or anything that might have affected him health-wise, but also for the next race next week. I didn't see the crash, Crofty. Have we seen any replay of it yet? So we can we'll understand. I just think it was the picture seems to be that it was just a tricky end to whatever spin or accident or crash or rollover that it was, and a tricky extrication. So yeah, lots going on down here in the pit lane. Further work continues on Esteban Ocon's car. It's quite a big job to change and fix the front right, which was fairly badly damaged on his car. Same for Yuki Tsunoda with the damage that he picked up as well. So that's the scene down here.
In my mind's eye, the car was upside down in the back of the picture when it went sliding at very high speed into the gravel trap, and they're now struggling to get it out from between the two barriers, basically.
I think so. You have the tyre barrier and then the catch fencing behind that.
So they're now to extricate the car and put the barriers back together.
So obviously we can't have that car still there in between the barriers when the race gets resumed, because everything has to be 100% safe and 100% as it was very much for the start of this race, as we had the year that Kimi Raikkonen caused the red flag here on the first lap, where they spent an hour putting in some new Armco basically.
Yeah.
So 2014 was it?
Yeah, it was a big crash, wasn't it, down the Wellington Straight, and then he basically punched a hole in the barrier, did Kimi. But so what we're looking out for next, obviously once they've recovered the car and hearing that the driver is okay, will be a warning to the teams about the restart time. And then they're into a procedure, and they've got to have the wheels on a minute to go and be ready to go. They'll then follow the safety car out of pits, to the fast lane in the pits, and I believe the safety car will then come straight back in, and we'll call a standing start.
And for the time being, it's a case of hurry up and wait. Not a huge amount of data that the drivers can examine, can look at, but they'll all look at their starts. And in particular, Sergio Perez will be thinking, right, I can't afford another standing start, like the one I got when the lights went out. And Charles Leclerc will be thinking, I probably need a better start as well. Carlos Sainz will be thinking, right, okay, he got me the first time, I need to try and do the reverse the next time here. Max Verstappen will be like, right, I've been here before, and I've managed to go and win races from it.
Yeah, so apparently Alex Albon's at the medical centre as well as Zhou Guanyu. 23 and 24 as it happens, and we're waiting for news on that. Karun, what more can you tell us?
Yeah, Martin, I came down to the Skypad, we're waiting for the information, but I can tell you the truck has just come back with George Russell's car, and a flurry of Mercedes mechanics have come running out. They've been given the instructions to try and have a look at the damage. They're looking at the rear left. In fact, I'm standing right next to them now as they're trying to get the jack, see if they can get the jack underneath it. They've got the trolleys here. There's about 8 mechanics around me. They've been given the instruction by their team to try and get the car ready while they argue the toss with race control. So we'll be very interested to see what happens. I mean, I can see damage on the rear left. The floor is damaged, and the wheel, of course, but it doesn't actually look too bad. So as you guys were talking about before, it's a question of whether they can argue the toss for him to make the restart, I guess.
Absolutely. Thanks ever so much, Karun. We're looking at Max Verstappen at the moment, and the blankets going on the Mercedes car. What would you do if you had the power, Martin? Would you want to see more cars in this race? Would you say, yeah, okay, Mercedes could get that car fixed? We had the situation with Sergio Perez, didn't we, with that long rain delay in Belgium last year, which gave Red Bull more than enough time to get his car fixed and into the race, albeit from a pit lane start.
Yeah, I think they don't want to promote the concept of cars being dragged back to the pits with suspension and wheels and bodywork hanging off them, and the cut-off point is you've got to come back under your own steam. And it's the same in qualifying, isn't it? If you stop at the side of the track, that's it, you're out of qualifying. And that's been a fairly clear dividing line for some time. In free practice, they will bring your car back, and if there's enough time, you can get it back out again. So what's going on with Lando's, some discussion there with Joe Bauer on what's going on with Lando. And normally they also would let the lapped runners through, but of course there are no lapped runners because we didn't even get a lap of the race. They're allowed to pass through. But
as Alex Albon's car, you can see on the truck, damage that he sustained to a Williams that had been upgraded for this weekend, and he was running all the new bits. His teammate Nicholas Latifi had the better of it in qualifying, got into the top 10.
Yeah, so what I think they're trying to do now is reorganise the running order and push the cars a little bit further down the fast lane. They stopped outside their own garages, of course, which are not actually in sequential order, are they, in terms of where the teams finished in the championship last year? Because here, to make sure the fans get a better view of the front-running team, shall we call them, they tend to be in the middle of the pit lane, don't they? So I think they're and there we're seeing then the car is now out between the barriers.
And now look at the roll hoop. It doesn't seem the roll hoop looks like it's gone, to be honest, on that. And I would imagine there's quite a bit of damage to the fence down there too.
It's a very high-speed corner, and of course full tanks of fuel, over 100 kilograms of fuel in the car, and you can see there the witness marks as he's gone across the hard runoff area, which is normally enough to slow a car down, but that's when it's rubber side down. You know, when it's bodywork side down, they don't slow down too well.
So here is the race start once again. Zhou Guanyu starting in 9th place, the red and white Alfa Romeo. Nicholas Latifi gets in between him and George Russell. Gasly backs out. There's the initial content. That's where the car then is upside down onto the gravel, and then it flips and tries to right itself, and as it does so, that's by the barriers, and then it goes over the tyre barrier and into the catch fencing. So it was actually, Martin, upside down, as you can see, and the roll hoop and the halo very much doing its job before the car digs in, and you do not ever want to see accidents like that.
Yeah, I think George was pulling to the left into the AlphaTauri. That's tripped the Alfa Romeo completely over. Luckily it lost a little bit of speed, going round and round and round into the gravel. As I said, it's always concerning then because your rollover hoop digs into the gravel. We're told we're only seeing these replays. Now we know that he's okay.
Yes.
Just to reassure you. Yeah, so whether George got a little tap on his right-hand side, I don't know. But so three of them got together. So the centre of gravity of these cars is so unbelievably low that to tip them over is not easy.
Watch Gasly go to try and follow Latifi here. And is it Gasly that makes the contact?
Yeah, so it's basically George was coming a little bit left and they pincered Gasly in the middle, and it's immediately just the face of the tyre contact has just flipped the car completely over.
This is the view from Lance Stroll, who started right at the rear.
Oh, and there's the secondary incident kicking off there.
Well, there's a cloud of smoke, isn't there? Tyres that have locked up and a lot of smoke. And trying to pick your way through that is not easy. Sebastian Vettel goes into the back of Alex Albon. And then that goes, Alex Albon, I think, then makes contact with Esteban Ocon.
Incredible, we only lost, at the moment, 3 cars in this incident.
So here is Alex Albon now, and he gets the tap, nothing he can do, sent into the barriers, just avoids Daniel Ricciardo, and I think then makes contact with Esteban Ocon.
So Yuki had a poor start, nearly he bogged down, and this is where it went wrong in front of him. So what it was just so many so much contact with Albon's car as well, but there's so many drivers getting a poor start basically, and it's just mixed the pack up terribly.
Esteban Ocon then, nothing he could do about it. He's already on the grass trying to get past the AlphaTauri, sees all the locks up, puts his brakes on, and then he's heading to the scene of an accident at just the wrong time.
He thought he was navigating that beautifully, and then from stage right came, I think it was Alex Albon, wasn't it? Yeah, there's the car upside down. The other good news in that incident is when it hit the catch fencing, which is there to protect the fans, of course, it went floor side into it and not halo and headrest side into it.
So Beat told driver is okay. Just informed the message from race control. So Joe is okay.
Thanks.
And you can hear the applause from the crowd as they see these pictures like us for the first time. And Zhou Guanyu, we're told, is okay after a horror crash. Really was. Going into Abbey, which is normally taken around about 177 miles an hour in normal racing. You're probably reaching 160 miles an hour, even from a standing start. Made contact with George Russell's Mercedes, flipped upside down and went across the gravel before the car then dug in and flipped once more over the barriers and landed floor side against the catch fencing. Martin Brundle.
Yeah, so I've got a document here from the FIA that's basically suggesting that they will restart 17 cars. But Carlos Sainz is back on pole position and Max Verstappen. Obviously they didn't complete one lap, but it says it's an automated document. It's not showing up on the computer at the moment, but it makes it quite clear it's automated, but it's showing 17 cars, which is correct. But then Ocon and Co would be at the back of that. Okay, we'll wait and see if that's accurate or not.
And while we do that, let's head down to Karun at the Sky Pad.
Thanks, Crofty. Yes, now that we know Zhou Guanyu is okay, we can show you from the helicopter first of all. So I'm going to pick these drivers out. You can see that there is Zhou, there's George Russell, and that is Pierre Gasly. Further back, Watchalong, Sebastian Vettel, Alex Albon. So those are the 5 cars we're keeping an eye on. As the start gets going, George and Zhou Guanyu, as Martin said, made terrible starts. Watch out for Nicholas Latifi here. He's in the blue Williams, so he gets through the middle straight away, gets through the gap in the middle, and as they get going, at this point, Gasly, he sees that same gap that Latifi's gone through, and there is the pinch point. So we'll just go back a couple of frames to see it, but you can see George moves across from his line here. He's starting to move across to the left-hand side. We'll just go slowly along. There, he deviates slightly to the left. Gasly gets pinched in between. He's got nowhere to go. Zhou is obviously to the left-hand side, and the contact is made. So that's where that incident happened. And we will go on board in a second to show you. But I just want to quickly point out that accident's happening there, up ahead. And Albon, clearly, as you said, Crofty, smoke, and he's reacted. He's backed out of it. And Sebastian Vettel gone into the back of him. I think also the Alfa Romeo, the other Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas, who was in front in this red car here, he's first slowed down. Albon's had to react to him. Vettel can't see that Bottas has slowed down, and he's gone to the back of Albon, which has sent Albon with a big impact into the barrier there on the right-hand side, the concrete wall he's gone into. So let's go on board with Pierre Gasly. As I said before, Latifi gets through the gap. Gasly's gone for that same gap there, and watching his hand, he can see that it's a horrible feeling as a racing driver. In the middle, the gap is just narrowing. There's nothing he could do. He can't go left, can't go right, and he can't really back out of it because then he'll get hit from behind. And big impact you see there, Zhou going upside down, and I'm very, very glad to hear he's okay. Let's watch it from George Russell's start. So he knows he's made a poor getaway. Look at the cars ahead disappearing away. There comes Latifi, and now this is the interesting point, right? So this is where George is. You can just see the front wing here of the Alfa Romeo alongside him there. And as we go along, he's made the contact. So it's yeah, it's one of those things. The start line incident is quite hard to you know, it's one of those things. 3 into 1 doesn't go. But yeah, again, just watch George's hands. He's there, and now looks in the left mirror. That is critical. He's looked at watch his head, and he's just taken a look in the left mirror there, and starts to move across to the left-hand side. And I think he's underestimated. He's completely underestimated that Gasly was coming up at high speed, and unfortunately they've made contact. So yeah, there you go. That gives you a little bit of insight.
Thanks ever so much indeed, Karun. Piecing together the starts. Tom Cruise was watching on in the Mercedes garage, and like everybody in the pit lane, worried and concerned for the health of Zhou Guanyu, but we're told he's okay. He has been taken out of that car into the ambulance. Ted, bring me more.
Well, I actually have more on the restart, Crofty, which will be the grid order. And the biggest question up and down the engineers, up and down the pit lane, is why is that then? So there seems to be some sort of confusion about why race control have decided that actually it's going to be Carlos Sainz starting the restart at the front on pole. Lewis Hamilton, who made a great start up from 5th, is going to be back to 5th. He was 3rd after, wasn't he, when they came in?
Yes.
And Max Verstappen is going to be dropped from the lead back down to 2nd.
Trust me, I've asked these questions to the FIA as well, because I'm not actually 100% sure as to why, because normally when there's a red flag, we pick up the race in the positions the drivers were running at the time of the red flag. Martin?
They didn't get through the first sector though, did they? No. So is there a point at which the race order was clear before the red flags, which came out very, very quickly? So that's That's the only thing I can think of right now, that they're not starting in the order they came back to the pit lane in.
However, my logic would be on that yes, we weren't racing up until the point of that first sector, but the cars certainly went through that first sector timing beam, as it were, albeit under red flag conditions, when by that stage they wouldn't have been able to overtake and would have had to have stayed in stationary file and go slowly. So this is how the grid would look. I've got the document here, as Martin said as well, Ted. Carlos Sainz would start at the front with Max Verstappen on the front row, then Leclerc, then Perez, then Hamilton, then Norris, Alonso, then Latifi, Gasly and Bottas, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Ocon, Magnussen, Vettel, Schumacher, Stroll. That would be the order for the restart.
And I can confirm that that is the order, that everybody in a confined space in the pit lane has had to shuffle the cars, apart from the top 6 or so. Everybody else has had to shuffle their cars, and the poor Aston Martins, who took advantage of the chaos on lap 1, have had to shuffle all the way back, all the way to the back. And a lot of people...
so there is Sainz in the front of the queue, and I think we can confirm, Ted, what we've been saying, and that is how it will restart. Thank you very much, Ted Kravitz. A few of you may have seen on social media that on that first lap, when we had the red flag, I should say, there were several people who were tempted to enter the track here at Silverstone. Those people were immediately removed. The matter is now being dealt with by the local authorities. There was Northamptonshire Police saying intelligence that some were here at Silverstone intent on disrupting the British Grand Prix. It seems that a few got onto the track. Their efforts came to absolutely nothing. The race had been red flagged by that stage, but to enter a racetrack, whatever your cause, seems to me to be utterly ludicrous.
Was the red flag just incredibly lucky in that respect? Because to sit around a blind corner where the cars come through at 190 miles an hour, 300 kilometers per hour, you're putting everybody at risk at that point.
Not just yourselves, but those that are racing out on the track as well. The matter, as I said, now been dealt with by the local authorities. And let's head back down to the paddock. Simon Lazenby.
Yeah, still awaiting a restart time, aren't we, from race control. Let's bring in Damon and Jensen, who are watching that alongside me, to get their views on the incident. All I will say is that it was when you have a look at it, it was right at the top of the catch fencing. It was really lucky it wasn't any lower, otherwise that could have been incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, it was one of those accidents that everything has just gone wrong up until the point where he's okay. So he's upside down here. Already it's unusual to be upside down. The cars don't flip over that easily these days. And it's just kind of dug in, and it's flicked off of the first line of tyres, and that's flicked the car up in the air and into the catch fencing. Luckily the catch fencing is nice and strong. They've done a great job of that, and it's there to keep obviously the driver safe, but also the spectators as well, and it's bounced down in between the catch fencing and the tyres. But I think the reason for the long hold was he was okay, but the problem is they just couldn't get him out the car.
Yeah,
there's very limited space down there.
Oh, first thing to say is, any time we have a race stopped and a suspension, if you like, of the video that we've been hoping to see, it's very worrying. So we're very relieved to see that Joe is okay and out of that car. But yes, sounds like he was stuck up against the backside. Well, you can imagine no one's prepared for that. And look at the violence of that.
I tell you, what that does show, though, is the halo in action, doesn't it? I mean, without that, very worrying.
I just want to say that there's catch fencing, but there is also catch fencing behind that as well. But yes, the problem is there's marshals there as well. So
also because he's obviously gone up against the catch fencing, but it's been the floor of the car, which is positive. And when he's come back down, it's obviously clipped the tyres, which has held the car up in the air, if you like. So it wouldn't have been on his helmet anyway, which is good. But the halo's definitely helped him in that incident.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz has just been told, we understand, of a team rally about 10-15 minutes until the restart. Are you interested in going back effectively to the starting order? It's worse if it didn't happen with those that are out.
Weirdly, I don't know why, but I thought that was what happened anyway. And then I was thinking about it and said, does that happen? But no, and obviously they can change whatever they want on the cars. It's the way with red flag.
straight, which was another sort of 250 metres from when the red flag was flown. That is such a lucky escape. And so stupid to come onto a racetrack.
Karim sent me a picture of, the cars did actually pass the protesters on the side of the track. So, as expected, it will be a standing start, and as expected, no, it's not as expected really, but it's a brand new set of medium compound tyres on the Ferrari, and he went into the race, Carlos Sainz, with 2 of those available to him. And look at that, brand new tyres, because they give you a little bit more grip away from the grid. The cars are separated by 8 metres, they're just over 5 metres long. And if you can get a 2 or 3 metres extra grip from a tyre, a brand new tyre, or a softer brand new tyre.
So Max on the mediums.
Yeah, Max has gone, he's swapped. So that means he's now used 2 sets of, in my view, 2 different types of compound, which you're obliged to do, unless it rains. And they will now go round, and they've got to hurriedly remember where they are on the grid now, their name, and because they're going to, some of them are going to be a lot of them are going to be starting in different grid slots to where they were first time around, because obviously we've lost people like George out of P8, so anybody behind him is moving up, but luckily their number and their 3-letter identifier is on the pit wall.
So the 3 drivers that we've lost from this race, Zhou Guanyu, who made contact with George Russell, also out in this race, who ended up going over the tyre barrier and coming to a sudden halt by the catch fencing, taken in an ambulance to the medical centre, but as we've heard is okay and not suffering serious injuries after that horrifying crash. Zhou Guanyu and George Russell then are out of this race. Alex Albon, who got tagged from behind by Sebastian Vettel, went into the pit straight wall, the Sir Lewis Hamilton pit straight wall, and then came across the track, made contact with Esteban Ocon. Yuki Tsunoda also sustaining damage as well. Well, Alex Albon is out of this race, but Ocon and Tsunoda managed to get back to the pits, and they can take their place on this restart, which, because the cars didn't make it to the safety car 2 line, the pit lane exits, the FIA have had to go back to the original grid for the British Grand Prix, minus those cars that aren't taking part, to determine who starts where for the British Grand Prix Part 2.
Yes, and it's extraordinary that we've still got 17 of them in the Grand Prix, isn't it? Good work there to fix those damaged cars.
Quite. There you can see a bit of weaving down the straight. The reason they're doing that is to generate tyre temperature, because those long straights, and on what are still quite chilly conditions for a Formula 1 tyre, need to get some heat and some energy into them to give them grip.
Yeah, and of course, you know, they've been in the pit lane, fast lane. They've not been in the garage to where they can warm the brakes up and prepare the car in the most perfect way in the garage. So drivers there, Nigel Mansell looking on. He wants a Ferrari victory today, he said on the grid walk, chatting to me. And look at my cap, he said. That's I think he'd like to see Carlos Sainz win the race today with Nigel.
So Christian Horner then looking on in that Red Bull garage as Carlos Sainz pulls up into pole position once more. I think he got into his car about 18 minutes before Max Verstappen did, I'm told, down in that pit lane. And he got the worst of the starts in the front row battle with Max Verstappen first time around. Verstappen, though, isn't on the soft compound tyre second time around. I'll tell you who is: Latifi, Gasly, Tsunoda, Vettel and Ocon. So some have gone thinking, right, we can get a fast start here and we can get some places off the line. And when Charles Leclerc got a poor start last time around, Lewis Hamilton said, thank you very much, there's a great gap for me to go into. Sergio Perez wasn't going to fill that gap either. What's going to happen second time around? Here at Silverstone, British Grand Prix, lights out, away we go. They weren't held for long. Sainz comes over to cover off Verstappen, almost pushing him into the pit wall, but he might have to yield. This does make the move around the outside and stays ahead. Sergio Perez now challenging down the inside. Hamilton's dropped a place or two, and he's now tangling with Charles Leclerc. It's Carlos Sainz out in front, down the inside. Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez make contact. Sight from Perez, then from Verstappen, then Leclerc, then comes Sergio Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton, and Lando Norris now going wheel to wheel with the Mercedes. Sainz into Brooklands he goes. Leclerc tries to go around the outside of Max Verstappen and goes off the track in the process.
That's the second time they've made contact in this lap alone. A much better restart then for Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton unlucky that he got put back into his original grid slot, and he's side by side through Woodcote.
He was side by side. He's now behind Lando Norris. As into Copse we go. There is damage to that front wing of Sergio Perez Red Bull, and quite severe damage too. And now towards Maggots and Beckett's we go. Hamilton is behind Lando Norris in 6th. Then comes Gasly, Alonso, Latifi and Tsunoda.
Yeah, the stewards will be looking at the damage front. When we saw, didn't we, Esteban Ocon having to pit with Magnussen having to pit in Canada with a damaged front wing. But great restart for Ferrari. Sainz so brave into turn 1, and he squeezed Verstappen onto the grass. Verstappen had to get out of the throttle.
Fernando Alonso making a challenge on Pierre Gasly into Stowe. Meanwhile, Ocon making a challenge on Latifi. As into, there goes Perez down the inside, goes Alonso on Gasly. Can't quite make that move stick. Brilliant racing going on here on this second opening lap of the British Grand Prix. But it's Carlos Sainz who leads them through from Verstappen, Leclerc, then comes Perez, Norris and Hamilton completing the top 6.
And I think the piece that was hanging off on Perez's Red Bull may have departed the car altogether, which is probably good news for him in terms of not having to pit with the black and orange flag. But he'll be losing front downforce, he'll be sliding at the front a lot, he'll be damaging the front tyres ever faster.
They're not investigating necessarily as yet, but the stewards have noted the incident between Verstappen and Leclerc down at this corner Brooklands when Leclerc had to go off the track. Let's see what they do about it as Daniel Ricciardo gets past Sebastian Vettel and up into 13th place.
Yeah, it was Leclerc who bundled up the inside in turn 4, it must be said, but the stewards will be looking at did Verstappen give Leclerc racing room around the outside? Was he far enough alongside to have earned racing space?
Sainz 1.1 seconds clear now of Max Verstappen. Mick Schumacher has just got ahead of Lance Stroll. That's a battle for 16th place as it currently stands. Leclerc 2.5 seconds off Verstappen. Perez running in 4th, and then Norris and Hamilton as we watch Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo currently running in 12th place and part of a long train of cars making their way down the Hangar Straights and waiting for the next time around when they'll want some DRS to try and make an overtake happen. Ferrari out in front. They have now led over 80,000 kilometres in Grand Prix racing in their history. Not a bad effort.
DRS enabled, as you predicted, as we know at the end of the second lap, but I mean, there are only 17 restarted. Look, like there were 34 of them out there having a go at each other. Super aggressive first lap.
Let's head to Sky Race Control. Karun Chandok.
DRS has been enabled, Crofty, but Carlos Sainz has broken the magic 1 second number he needed. Good news on the other side of the Ferrari pit. Charles Leclerc's radio to say his car is okay despite going over that big sausage curve at the loop.
It seems to have a lot more pace at the moment than Sergio Perez in that Red Bull. Perez leading Norris, leading Hamilton around Brooklands and into Luffield. Now is Hamilton poised to strike back at Lando Norris.
Then they need to clear Perez. Perez will be slow with this damaged front wing. He'll lose a good dozen seconds if they have to change that. And you can see on the right-hand side, that then affects the airflow all the way down the side of the car. And so it doesn't energize the under tray as well. So Perez will be losing downforce all round, particularly in front.
So we lost the right side end plate, front end plate, missing 5 points.
These are crucial laps then for the British pair of Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton, who've now got DRS down the Hangar Straight. You can see how Hamilton is gaining on Norris. Norris has got DRS behind Perez. Hamilton just ran out of straight to make the move, but look at that, he's itching to try and get past as Perez now comes into the pits. That frees up the McLaren and the Mercedes. 2
Brits are away there, so Perez struggling so maybe there's going to be a roadblock there. He has to come in and get that fixed.
No further investigation, say the stewards, the Verstappen and Leclerc incident, so we carry on racing as Perez then comes in for a pit stop that is way out of the strategy window that Red Bull would have been envisaging for this race, and you can see him tumbling down the order as a result.
Yeah, I think Leclerc's lucky that for bundling up the inside of turn 4 he's not being looked at, so it looks like it's pretty much even Stevens for those two.
Right, DRS for Hamilton, not for Norris this time around. Hamilton gaining on Norris, and as we get into Brooklands by the BRDC clubhouse, You can hear the cheers as one British driver overtakes another and Hamilton's up to fourth.
And yeah, I think that'll indeed. And we know how good the Mercedes looked in dry conditions, so that's released Lewis in some lovely clear air now. He can get after Leclerc. We know he's got a bit of damage on his front wing. That's an important move for Lewis Hamilton, and Lando can... I don't think that's his race today anyway for Lando against the Mercedes. So he needs to just hang on to Lewis as long as he can. But Lewis, I think, will now set off after Leclerc.
He was picking up a bit of understeer, I think, there, Lando Norris already. He's got a bit of DRS to help tow him along and improve his lap time on this particular lap. But on the previous lap, both Norris and Hamilton lapping in the 135s, our leading trio of Sainz, Verstappen and Leclerc, all lapping in the 133s. Verstappen just a couple of tenths faster than Carlos Sainz, who led him away at the restart and stayed ahead this time.
Yeah, Leclerc got a poor start, actually, but look, Sainz pinched Verstappen, and all fair racing. Verstappen had to take to the curb and a bit of grass, and at that point he got his teammate, who then backed off to give him some space. And look at Leclerc, he's fourth, and he has a charge up the inside and is running momentarily second there. And a little bit of rubbing his racing, got away with that nicely.
Did you think Perez might actually have had a chance to dive down the inside of Max Verstappen?
I think he was protecting Verstappen there, wasn't he? So Sainz gives him the little squeeze. There's the bit of grass that, and Max having to get out of the throttle. But then, I think he thinks, no problem, I'll do the outside of turn 3 then. But Sainz saw that one coming, ran a little bit wide himself. Covered off the apex of 4. Now look out for Charles Leclerc. Bouncing around, we didn't quite see him, bouncing around on the inside of us.
This is the view.
Verstappen within the DRS zone, within the 1 second, just about. He'll start getting his rear wing open. Bad news for Carlos Sainz, great news for Max Verstappen. There it is, there's the rear wing open. That's around 10-12 miles an hour extra speed.
And you can see the difference that it's making for Max Verstappen, but Carlos Sainz is far enough ahead, and it's battle resumed between these two. From the closing stages in Montreal, the opening stages in Silverstone, it's Sainz and Verstappen. This time around, the Ferrari ahead of the Red Bull. That's not how it finished, of course, in Canada. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
These new wider delta-shaped nose cones and front wings are so cumbersome, Crofty. When you damage it like Checo Perez, it takes an age to change, and that's why he's lost so much race time, Perez. Just another update from down here. Sebastian Vettel did the second start on a soft set of tyres, but they didn't last longer than 8 laps, and he's pitted and gone on to carry on the race.
Yeah, he's come back out on the medium tyre now as Sebastian Vettel. Obviously the hard tyre is not going to go to the end of the race, and they believe in Aston Martin there's better race pace with a couple of mediums rather than trying to hang on for a hard tyre to make it last until the checkered flag. We're on lap 8 of 52, and the battle for the lead sees the top 3 spread by only 2.5 seconds. There is your race leader, Carlos Sainz, in his 150th Grand Prix start. Max Verstappen in his 151st Grand Prix start. Charles Leclerc in his 90th Grand Prix start, currently occupying those podium places, and they are lapping in the mid 133s, as is Lewis Hamilton. Lando Norris about a second a lap slower, currently running in 5th place.
So Alex Albon is going to be transferred for precautionary checks to the hospital.
Copy.
He certainly is. He must be looking ever larger in the mirrors of that Ferrari. And of course, we saw Alex plunge head first into the pit wall, didn't we?
That's right.
Whereas Zhou Guanyu is actually remaining here under observation at the circuit.
Best wishes to Alex Albon, and I hope there's nothing there's not too serious an injury for that young man. It's yes, no chance whatsoever to avoid the concrete wall after he was hit from behind. So we can see Carlos Sainz ahead of us as we ride on board then with Max Verstappen. Verstappen gaining and gaining and gaining, but Sainz once again just a little bit too far. And while Sainz hasn't got DRS, of course, and that gap in the rear wing to open up and help his pace, what he has got, Martin, at his disposal is a few tools with the engine and the energy recovery system that can give him extra pace at a time in the track he needs it most. Yeah,
and he would have taken a bit of satisfaction out of seeing Sainz struggle a bit for traction there in left corner going on to the pit straight and the Red Bull.
Bashed him not once but twice. Ooh! Carlos Sainz going off onto the grass there. I thought he recovered it, but he hadn't recovered it sufficiently for Max Verstappen to stay behind him. Verstappen sees the error by Carlos Sainz and swoops into the lead at the start of the hangar straight. Verstappen, the championship leader, now ahead of Carlos Sainz. And the Ferrari, whether it was caught out by an errant gust of wind here at Silverstone or not, well, it was vulnerable at the start of that straight, and Sainz could do nothing to keep Verstappen at bay.
Yeah, and to add insult to injury, Verstappen had the DRS because he was behind at the detection point, the drag reduction system. So, unforced error there to an extent from Carlos Sainz. Let's see what happens. He's turned into the final right of Beckett's. And the back end of the car wouldn't live with it. He's had to give it an armful of left-hand lock in a right-hand corner, and he just walks the car off the road. So he'll pick up the throttle now, and there it is. Wasn't much of a movement, was it? But he had to steer left to drive. Turn into the slide. There it is.
That's a costly moment for Carlos Sainz. It's cost him the lead, but it might cost him second place as well, because his teammate Charles Leclerc now has DRS and is within 1 second of getting past. Pierre Gasly has gone off the track as well. Down at turn 15, or to give it its better name, Stowe. That's why you might have seen the yellow flag, and then Yuki Tsunoda down at Village making a bit of a lock-up going off the track too.
Fastest man last time around was Lewis Hamilton in 4th place, and actually Sergio Perez down in 16th after that early pit stop.
You see the DRS advantage there that Charles Leclerc has got on Carlos Sainz. He's getting ever closer to his teammate. Let's just see what happened with the two Alpha Tauris here. Whoa! Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly rather tripping over each other.
Synchronized spinning.
Yeah, and not to any great effect. Tsunoda on the inside of Pierre Gasly, and both Alpha Tauris having the misfortune there tumbling down the order. Karun Chandok will come to you at Sky Race Control in a couple of moments. Let's just stick with this, because down the Wellington straight, Charles Leclerc's got DRS once again. He's going to stay behind his teammate Carlos Sainz. To you, Karun.
He's been on the radio, Croft. He's saying that he's faster than Carlos and wants the team to swap them round.
Yeah, so Ferrari need to make that decision.
Into this race, you can see Lando Norris and Fernando Alonso going through into Abbey. So Verstappen comes out in 6th place in this race. What a dramatic British Grand Prix this has been so far. We've lost Alex Albon, Zhou Guanyu and George Russell after contact between Russell and Zhou right at the start, and Alex Albon getting tagged by Sebastian Vettel. We've seen Carlos Sainz take the restart after losing the initial start to Max Verstappen, but take the restart, lead the race. Verstappen overtake him on the track, and then Verstappen get a puncture, allowing Sainz and Leclerc to come back at him. And is this where he got that puncture, ran over a curb?
He went quite wide in Copse corner, and says he hit a bit, and that's where the carbon is going to be sitting if it's been discarded, and it feels like he's got an immediate puncture. He loses time all the way through Beckett's corner onto Hanger Straight, and yeah, then the tyre starts to drag a little bit when it gets punctured, and Max knew immediately what was going on. And of course then Sainz has got the DRS open because he was in the detection zone when he needed to be. Both Ferraris then easy pickings for them against effectively a Red Bull on 3 wheels, and he struggled to slow down for the speed line there as well, that's carefully monitored. So Max then, and you do 3 wheels on your wagon effectively, the brakes don't work.
Check the tires, otherwise there's something with the car. It's still not good.
Understood, Max, we're looking.
Yeah, there's something broken on the rear.
So Verstappen still very, very concerned. I wonder if he did go over a bit of carbon, Martin. That where we saw the replays, that's exactly where Sergio Perez started losing bits of his front wing. And I wonder if it was Perez's front wing damage that led to the carbon being on the track and Verstappen running over it.
Yeah, but was it carbon, or has something failed, or has it been over? You know, we saw him have to go over those curbs into turn 1. Has something been overstressed?
The car's 100% broken.
He can feel it. And for the 2nd year running here at Silverstone, Max Verstappen could find himself not finishing. Right rear, there's something loose, something wrong on the right rear. You could see it got the wrong camber angle on it as far as I could see then. So we assume it's tight. So maybe there's a bit of damage on his right rear suspension. He'll be wanting to, they'll have to pit him. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
They're not pitting him yet. I usually can see the mechanics clearing a space in the garage for a car. They're not doing that yet. I did think, Crofty, when he came in, all the tyres looked to be...
Can confirm it's bodywork damage, loss of rear. It is not critical, so you are able to continue, but you will have a performance loss.
Oh.
So so is that over the curbs then? Is that over the curbs at Copse corner that's torn some damage? So what they're seeing from the push rods is they're not seeing the right amount of load for the aero load. I thought I could see the right rear tyre looking like it was sort of folding under more than normal. So Tsunoda gets a time penalty for spinning out and taking his teammate with him, which is a fair cop. But Verstappen then, I think, will be under pressure pretty quickly.
Meanwhile, out in front, under pressure right now, Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc has been gaining on him for the last couple of laps.
I'm losing the car everywhere.
You have less rear aerodynamic load, but there's nothing we can do about it. We'll try to correct it at the next stop in terms of balance. But it is not structural, so you are safe to continue.
Last lap for Verstappen was 0.8 of a second slower than this man. Carlos Sainz, your race leader, will be back with Ted Kravitz in a few moments' time, because there's the DRS, that gap in the rear wing, opening once more for Charles Leclerc. Into Stowe they go, separated by about 4 car lengths.
Don't forget Lewis Hamilton in this. He's got the gap down to 4.8 to Charles Leclerc now. Faster last time around as well as the 2 Ferraris. They can't start squabbling too much. Hamilton has very much got them in his sights.
I was just about to say, the longer this goes on for Ferrari, the more it just affects the lap times by 3-4 tenths of a second, whilst they're both worried about either defending or trying to gain a lead. And Hamilton's just set a new fastest lap of the race, and he was 4 tenths of a second quicker than Carlos Sainz on lap 15. Ted, back down to you.
Crofty, don't forget, Charles Leclerc is missing 5 points of downforce, is he not, from his front wing? So the only 2 drivers in the top 4 with cars that haven't got something wrong with them is Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz. So I can only assume it's one of the little winglets that's on the brake duct on the rear of the car, and they are very good downforce because they're right at the point of the car. And there's Lance Stroll in for a pit stop right in front of me. So yeah, we talk about Red Bull must have very sensitive aerodynamics. You lose that on some other cars, driver might not even notice, but Verstappen calls it undrivable, completely broken.
Should Ferrari want to pit Charles Leclerc now, he's pretty much in undercut territory, where he comes in, gets a fresher set of tyres, does a storming out lap, and by the time Carlos Sainz reacts, Leclerc is ahead after that round of pit stops. Should Ferrari want to do that, but no sign of that as yet. There are the 2 Ferraris, and you can see Hamilton in the distance.
What do I need to do to win? I'll get my race now.
Copy. I will come back to you.
Yeah, it's nuts now. So Carlos Sainz is having to weave to keep his teammate behind him. The gap with Hamilton down to 4.6. Hamilton's done the fastest middle sector of anybody in the Grand Prix by some margin on this lap. He's coming at the 2 Ferraris.
Well, I'd imagine Charles is faster than you would probably be a line that could come from the Ferrari pit wall should they want to do that. That is how Charles Leclerc damaged his front wing, contact with Sergio Perez.
Yeah, it was a bit too bold, I must say, from Leclerc there.
Oh look, that's where bits fell off. The Ferrari of Charles Leclerc going down towards Copse in the front right part of his front wing.
Max was super smart in turn 4 because he just hung it around the outside. He knew there'd be trouble down the inside.
And so, lap 17 of this race, there's the 2 Ferraris. Their gap out in front has come down to 3.9 seconds between Leclerc and Hamilton. No further investigation forcing another driver off the track. Is that Gasly and Tsunoda having another battle, a second battle? The first one cost Tsunoda a 5-second time penalty.
Leclerc was almost understeering off the road there through the exit of Beckett's into Maggots and onto the Hangar Straight, but he looks so much faster on the brakes, does Leclerc over Sainz.
5 times Carlos Sainz has finished as runner-up in a Grand Prix. He's leading the British Grand Prix here, and he's led it now for as many laps as he led the Canadian Grand Prix last time out. You try telling him to let his teammate go past.
Sainz has been told that lap time target is 32.9.
Yeah, but then do something, please. I'm not trying to influence my results. I can't go faster, guys.
They're trying to be fair at Ferrari, and Leclerc's not.
Yeah, so I'm not sure Carlos has got a 32.9 in him at the moment, but you know, he's entitled to run his race and use his tyres as he sees fit as well. But they're playing into Mercedes' hands beautifully here.
Karun Chandok, while we hear the Charles Leclerc team radio, you've been having a little listen to what Carlos is saying.
Yeah, they've given him that 32.9, and he says he's got to charge his battery pack back up. He's saying, leave me here, I can't do the 32.9. What proof will be in the pudding, won't it, when they cross the timing line?
We'll see in a couple of moments, but there's the silver arrow of Lewis Hamilton gaining on them, currently in 3rd place, and these 3 have pulled a long way clear from Lando Norris, who's running in 4th. Then comes Fernando Alonso, who's keeping Norris very interested in 5th place. Verstappen running in 6th, and with all that damage, he's about 0.7 of a second a lap slower than Alonso ahead of him. Ocon currently 7th. Nicholas Latifi, we barely mentioned Nicholas Latifi, running a super race for Williams at the moment. The old Williams, without the upgrades, in 8th place and ahead of Valtteri Bottas and Daniel Ricciardo, currently occupying the final points place.
Keep pushing. We are on Hamilton lap times. Yep.
Yeah, so it's a 33.1, it's not a 32.9.
That's what Lewis got.
It's a 32.9 that Lewis did. So it's their best, you know, Carlos, pick up the pace, drag along your teammate, giving the DRS, which is worth up to 15 miles an hour, depending on which car and who you're following. But it is, and also the...
You need to push more, you need to push more.
Yeah. So that's the news he doesn't really want to hear, but they'd be best to drag along and pull themselves clear of Hamilton, because Mercedes, you know what Mercedes are now doing? Getting into the undercut zone, where if they pit first with a fresh set of tyres, if Lewis can get within a couple of seconds of these guys, then he's got a chance. They've got a chance to pit first and get track position.
There's nothing Lewis Hamilton likes more than an opportunity to get out there and delight the British crowd, and a challenge that's been laid down. And if you remember 12 months ago here at Silverstone, 3 laps from the end when he overtook a Ferrari to go and win the British Grand Prix. He's chasing down the Ferraris once again.
So Sainz has been told to push?
Yeah, copy. I try to keep my eyes, but I'm just losing race time.
Copy.
Leclerc feels vulnerable, and why wouldn't he? He knows Hamilton's going to arrive on the scene soon, and he's the one that could miss out on that. Where are these target lap times now? 32.9 for Carlos Sainz, a 32.7 for Charles Leclerc, 32.5 for Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, well, he's been asked to do a 32.9 as Carlos Sainz, and that's exactly what he's doing, and he is towing his teammate along. So I think this is their best shot at the moment. The trouble is, with a bit of missing front wing, Leclerc will get even more understeer following his teammate, and he's saying, I need to look after my tyres a bit as Hamilton exits onto the Wellington straight.
So Verstappen, with damage to his car, is trundling along, as far as he's concerned, in 6th place. George Russell, with damage to his car, out of this race. Lewis Hamilton, his teammate, currently running in 3rd and chasing down the Ferraris of Charles Leclerc, who feels under pressure and a little bit vulnerable, and Carlos Sainz, who leads this race. If you're just joining us and you've missed the opening 20 laps of the British Grand Prix, there's an awful lot of action you've missed. Press your red button.
Don't tell me again.
Latifi comes in for a pit stop then. Schumacher for his pit stop. They're back out. Latifi in 13th. Mick Schumacher down in 14th. And I think they're about to bring Carlos Sainz in, Martin.
Yeah, they're going to pick Sainz this lap. And so that's their solution to it, is to box and cover off. Box and stop, I think that's from a German word, but to cover off against an undercut, an early pit stop from the Mercedes, and it also releases Leclerc. Now we'll see what Leclerc's pace is. He needs to get on with it now after all that radio chat.
So I'm assuming it's going to be the hard compound tyre that is waiting for Carlos Sainz as he stops pretty much on his marks, and it is that white stripe hard tyre, the C1, hardest tyre in that Pirelli range. Can that get to the end of the race? Should be able to do 31 laps, 2.5 second stop. Look pretty nice, and no problems whatsoever for Ferrari, and he comes out onto the track. Carlos Sainz just ahead of his former teammate Lando Norris.
Yeah, had a lovely gap to drop into there. So now it's up to Carlos to use those new tyres and keep himself effective track position out front, and we'll keep an eye on what Leclerc and Hamilton can do in this phase of the Grand Prix, because surely we're going to see some reaction to that Sainz pit stop.
But if Hamilton were to stop now, he might come back out behind Lando Norris, because there was that 3-second gap between himself and Carlos Sainz. It might take a couple of laps. Oh, for Hamilton to clear that. Valtteri Bottas in the pit lane, retiring. What a poor afternoon it has been for the Alfa Romeo team. One car upside down over the gravel after a first lap accident, and the other car retiring with mechanical problems. For Valtteri Bottas, the best British Grand Prix weekend, his lowest grid spot here.
Just a reminder, Leclerc still carrying a little bit of front wing damage.
which is just, it's like holding out a slightly oversized carrot for Lewis Hamilton and to dangle in his face to say, come on, here's more incentive for you. He doesn't need it, but they've dangled it anyway.
Yeah, it's Bono, isn't it? Like a shark smelling a little bit of blood.
A 66% chance of a Leclerc overtake in terms of the pit strategy. Going down to 61%. So the longer Leclerc stays out, the less chance maybe of an overtake. But that just might move around from corner to corner on that one. It is worth pointing out, Leclerc can see Hamilton in his mirrors at the moment. Lewis Hamilton, who has not been in with a sniff of victory all season long, comes to Silverstone, and suddenly things change around again. 2009, Ted Kravitz, 2013. He went without a win into round 10 of the season, and in 2009 and 2013 he produced a win in round 10 of the season. And what round are we in this weekend?
I don't know, how many?
10.
All right, listen, you've got your numbers, Crofty. I've got some numbers for you. 2.7 seconds, the gap from Leclerc to Lewis last lap. This lap, 2.3. You see, two of us can do numbers. And so Lewis is closing on Leclerc, but only by those few tenths of a second per lap. But I've just got a feeling that he's giving it absolutely everything. Is it going to be enough to challenge the Ferraris? Is it going to be enough to pull something on strategy to win this race? I don't know, but they're giving it a really good go at Mercedes.
The only driver ever to win at least one race in every single season he's competed in Formula One is Lewis Hamilton, and the longest he's ever gone into a season without a win is round 10. But if it comes to fruition and he wins here today, then I'm going to believe in the numbers a little more often, Martin.
And the numbers are still looking good on the lap times as well, down to 2 seconds. So Leclerc late 1 minute 32s, but I think in a way he was being towed along and helped along by his teammate in front of him, giving him the DRS service. But Hamilton, we saw how good this Mercedes was. And when Jens and I were out on track on Friday afternoon, we put them back in, the Merc looked probably the best car through Beckett's, I would say, in terms of stability and lack of vertical bouncing.
They believed, when they came to the track this morning, they had a car that, in Mercedes' words, we can do some business with.
Copy.
Hamilton, his tyres are still strong, still going strong. Hard tyres on for Esteban Ocon as he pits from 8th place, and Kevin Magnussen pits at the same time. And Sebastian Vettel moves up into 8th, and he had a much earlier pit stop after swapping the soft tyres very, very quickly from the restart when he put them on. So a one-stop strategy. If you're on the medium tyres, you are right in the middle of the pit lane window right now.
I tell you what, Sainz's times are not that good, really. They're fine. He's sort of matching Leclerc up front, but another few laps and Hamilton will be effectively past him on a pit stop. So Carlos needs to be getting down in the low 1 minute 32s to use that hard compound tyre to its best, but of course we're not even anywhere near half distance yet.
Yes, the gap between Leclerc and Sainz, 19.4 seconds at the end of the previous lap, and that is okay for a pit stop to come in, change your tyres, get back out ahead of the car behind you, because you cut out quite a bit of track by taking that inside line. We're also watching, well, not just Leclerc, Hamilton, Ricciardo chasing Magnussen.
So he's 18.9 seconds ahead.
Verstappen being told to pit once again. I wonder, that can't be tyres. I wonder if that's terminal for Max Verstappen. Well, they are looking at tyres. So Ted, down to you.
They've got the head tyre, they've got the hard tyres out, and they're on, and he's off. Adrian Newey has been out. Did we see anybody pull off? There was a Mercedes mechanic in the way, in part of the gantry. Did anybody pull off part of the other brake duct winglet to balance the car? That's the only thing I can imagine it was, because that's what they said, didn't they? That we will try to balance it in the in another pit stop.
He's come out, by the way, with Sebastian Vettel on his birthday, getting a bit of overtaking action that he probably didn't think was possible. Vettel overtaking Verstappen, and that the battle currently for what, 7th place? Yes.
Yeah, I wonder if there's, I don't know, like a plastic bag or a bit of carbon debris that got in a vent or something, but we didn't really see, they didn't spend a lot of time looking around the back of it, Ted, to answer your question.
So there's the tyre changes. Verstappen's had a couple now. They'll have that hard tyre on to the end of the race. as far as they think. We've lost 4 in this race: Albon, Joe, Russell and Bottas. And out in front, Lewis Hamilton still continuing to reduce the arrears between himself and Charles Leclerc. We're on board now with Max Verstappen. Through maggots and beckets we go. At one stage, he was leading this race. And this stage, he does not like the hard tyre. It might be, Martin, you need to drive 3 or 4 laps here to actually get the temperature up and to get that grip, and then they start to come good.
Yeah, I mean, it's 32 degrees the track temperature, but certainly Sainz hasn't lit up the timing charts.
But he's finally starting to go faster than his teammate, Carlos Sainz.
But Max really struggling with grip there. Turn 3. Going around the outside of him.
Sainz has picked up the pace a little bit. It might be that Leclerc is now not a free pit stop ahead of his teammate, but look at this. He is barely a second clear of Lewis Hamilton. The gap now, as they go through Stowe, is down to less than a second.
Leclerc pits, and Hamilton leads the Grand Prix. There he is. So we know he's got damage on the front wing. Now, if Lewis has got some time in his pocket, some lap time in his pocket, he can grab himself an undercut here on both Ferraris, but he's going to have to pump in some spectacular laps.
On a set of hard tyres that is not yielding and offering much grip to those that are running it in the early stages of a stint. That aside, Lewis Hamilton now leads the British Grand Prix. That's something we said once or twice in the past, but we've certainly not said it this season in Formula One. It's the first time he's been in the lead since Abu Dhabi last season. And the crowds that have flocked here to Silverstone will love the sight of Hamilton in front.
On the car. I'm driving on ice.
So, Verstappen really struggling here. Lewis Hamilton going long to try the overcut, where those that are trying maybe the undercut, or in the case of Carlos Sainz, a planned pit stop, are starting to struggle just a little bit. These hard tyres, Martin, not doing what the teams thought they would.
No, they're not working well at all, and Max Verstappen confirming that. Look, I was struggling anyway. Now you're giving me these tyres, I've got no grip at all. As Gasly gets the black and orange flag for a damaged car, you've got to stop by the pits. If that's the case, something hanging off that. So if Hamilton's got some pace, but I'm not sure he has, I'm not sure he's got what he needs.
Copy, Lewis. So yeah, let's go for it.
So he says tyres are still good. He's changed tyres once because of the red flag and changing in that red flag period, but he has got to put another compounder tyre on.
32.6 for Lewis, and yeah, if he can keep pumping those in, we'll keep an eye on Sainz's time. So he's very close, isn't he, to undercutting one, if not both, of the Ferraris if he can keep this pace up. What he will have is much fresher tyres, because Sainz pitted on lap 20.
Either way, it's been a storming drive from Lewis Hamilton in this race so far. Lewis Hamilton back to what he's done time and time and time again over the years, chasing cars down, getting out in front, leading Grand Prix. It's been a while coming, but the British fans are seeing hammer time here at Silverstone this weekend. Ted, to you.
And they're absolutely loving it, Crofty. When Charles Leclerc came in for a pit stop, I got a closer look at the damage his front wing. I saw no more damage on his, or no less damage, than Sergio Perez had to his front wing when Red Bull was so keen to change it earlier. The whole of the end plate on the right-hand side off. And if that's only lost him 5 points of downforce, then I'm a monegasque. That's a crucial part of the front wing, and these front wings are really important on these new cars this year. So I'll be amazed if that's that little damage aerodynamically.
Charles Leclerc.
Okay, understood.
Charles Leclerc is starting to put in some very, very good sector times. If Hamilton wants to pit and come out ahead of Leclerc, he might need to pit at the end of this lap.
Yeah, because Leclerc was over a pit stop behind, and he's having to pump these laps in now. And that's it. I completely agree with Ted. It doesn't look any less damage to his front wing than Perez's front wing. But now I think today is about Verstappen just scoring the World Championship leader. It's just scoring as many points as he can by the same.
Came in with 46 points, the lead in the championship did Max Verstappen. His teammate Sergio Perez was running in second place. Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship was 78 points out in front. Things are changing at Silverstone, as they might have done last year too.
So obviously Leclerc did not undercut Sainz in all of that, but his tyres will be 5 laps younger now for the remainder of the Grand Prix, and is coming at him rather rapidly.
Esteban Ocon has got Nicholas Latifi in his sights. He fancies 9th place at the moment. Pierre Gasly, you saw in the pits, has retired from this race. Bottas, Russell, Joe and Albon also out of this race, and the 15 that are left out on the track giving us some splendid entertainment here on this Silverstone Sunday. Hamilton out in front, 19.2 seconds the gap though to Charles Leclerc, who is the fastest man on track currently. Karun Chandok at Sky Race Control.
Pete Bonington, Lewis Hamilton's race engineer, coming on the radio coffee to say he needs another 1.7 seconds to clear Charles Leclerc. They're pushing on, hoping that those tyres that he's got, the medium compound tyres, will give him the performance. He's done a personal best. The problem is, Charles Leclerc is now within DRS of Carlos Sainz, who's going to start towing him around.
And Ferrari, once again, have got to make a pretty quick decision there.
Are we fighting? No, for the tyres.
So we are right on top of the pit window from Hamilton.
Yeah, so what does that mean? Do they let Charles Leclerc past, or as Charles Leclerc wants to know, am I expected to overtake him?
Yeah, if Lewis pitted now, he'd come out right in the middle of this battle. He'd be right there.
The top 3 might be separated by 19 seconds. However, one of them's got to come into the pits.
Free to fight.
And Ferrari's answer is, right, go out and fight. No team orders here this afternoon. You want to sort it out? Go and sort it out, gentlemen. That might not be the best idea for Ferrari in terms of helping to guarantee them victory, because there's every chance that both drivers get held up, and that will be music to Mercedes here. But you know what? We want to see racing, so I'm not going to grumble with it.
Absolutely right. So they're all in the low sort of 32s now. Leclerc, though, clearly the faster at this point, but he's now got the DRS servers as well against his teammate. So they're going to let them fight. It's an interesting decision, very interesting decision. For me, this is a situation where you let Leclerc go, and if it doesn't work out, he gives the place back later on. But I can understand why, you know, Carlos is a fighter. He wants to win the British Grand Prix for himself, but he doesn't have the absolute raw pace out in front at the moment.
I mentioned that Esteban Ocon had Nicholas Latifi in his sights. Well, he's now got ahead of Nicholas Latifi and into 9th place. And I can give you some news on Zhou Guanyu from the
Target
FIA.
lap 32.2, otherwise we swap in the cars.
Okay, one more lap. Good one.
Who was taken to the medical centre but has been declared fit and released from the medical centre, and that's the latest update on Zhou Guanyu.
Yeah, so exactly what we're talking about. So, all right, Carlos, one more lap to do a 32.2. You've got to match Hamilton. Hamilton just, is just a fraction faster than him. Or we're going to swap you around. Absolutely the right decision. He's bought himself another lap to sort it out. Otherwise, they're playing right into the hands of Mercedes-Benz there.
So Zhou Guanyu released from the medical centre. Alex Albon was transferred by helicopter to Coventry Hospital for precautionary checks after his incident and accident into the wall on the Sir Lewis Hamilton pit straight, as Charles Leclerc heads towards Stowe and makes a last-minute dart down the inside. Thought he was going to go for it. Carlos Sainz was having none of it.
So target lap time for Sainz is 32.2, otherwise we'll swap.
But we are losing time compared to Hamilton. 2-2 is not enough.
Yes.
In my opinion. So you choose.
Understood.
Agreed. But what they mustn't play around. They've got to do the switch over down the hangar straight or somewhere and do it elegantly. Otherwise they'll hold each other up. You don't want to be offline. You don't want to do it in a critical area. Do it sort of in a place where you can both carry momentum.
For one moment, I thought Leclerc was going to dive down the inside at Village as well. They've got Yuki Tsunoda who's...
There we go. That's the way to do it.
And they've done it. quite happily there with Carlos Sainz letting Charles Leclerc past, and Leclerc getting the DRS as well to help him make that move very seamlessly indeed. So the instructions came from the Ferrari pit wall, but we'll see in time, was that too late? Was it 2 or 3 laps too late? Charles Leclerc will now respond. Do Mercedes bring Lewis Hamilton in at the end of this lap to try and respond, because they think they might be able to get out ahead? 19 seconds average time lost, Martin. It could happen.
Yeah, he's right there as they're in Hamilton's pit window, as it's been described. But we do know that this hard compound tyre that Lewis will go on to takes a little bit of warming up when you first get out there, a little bit of bringing to life. But Hamilton is right in the thick of this now.
And how do those tyres look? Lewis Hamilton, every time we've heard from them, has said, no, the tyres feel good, the tyres are okay.
Yeah, they've got that lovely dull sheen across the top of them. And any graining phase he'll pass through now, so I can understand why he's hanging on to them. And of course, you know, just to remind you, Sainz pitted on lap 24, Leclerc pitted lap 20, Leclerc pitted on lap 25. So Hamilton's going to have at least 12 laps advantage over Sainz, and a 7 laps advantage over Leclerc. 7 laps of a very long circuit.
And we're expecting him to go onto the hard compound tyre. But is there a chance here, with 20 laps to go in this race, he can hang out for another 7, 8 laps and then put the softs on at the end? He might come out behind the Ferraris, but he'd be on much faster tyres.
Yeah, good point. The deg, as we like to call it, degradation, is pretty low on all of the tyres around here. So can he carry these through and give the hard tyres a miss?
Either way, you're not going to want to miss the end of this British Grand Prix the way this race is shaping up. If you are just joining us, if you have missed the action so far, if you're a Sky Q or a Sky Glass customer, press your red button and you can watch highlights of the race alongside the live action. And the live action has been plentiful, and we've lost 5 drivers from this race. A double DNF for the Alfa Romeo team, their first since Abu Dhabi last season. Bottas and Joe both out. Russell out for Mercedes, ending his run of top 5 finishes during the course of this season. Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly also out. We're watching Mick Schumacher make a move on Nicholas Latifi, and Mick Schumacher up into the points. He's 6th on the all-time list of drivers that have had the most races without scoring a point, and the young German driver back up into the points again for Haas. Let's head to Karun at race control.
Lewis Hamilton saying he's got a slight vibration with the tyres, but they're still good. I think, Crofty, you might be right. I think if they extend another 4 or 5 laps, don't forget, with the wet qualifying, they all have new sets of soft tyres remaining. It's a gamble, but it might work.
Yeah, Seb Vettel didn't enjoy them early on, did he?
8. 1.4 unsafe to him.
He had a full tank of fuel though with the soft tyres.
Yeah, and the track's rubbing in a little bit now, but it's a reasonable gamble if this far out, I would say, to put soft tyres. I think I've got to want to go surely another 10 laps before you'd want to put those on.
On board with Kevin Magnussen in the other Haas car, Nicholas Latifi.
I can't maintain this pace forever, mate. Yeah, copy Lewis, you're doing a great job though. So let's just keep building this offset.
One of the problems Lewis has got is he's starting to catch quite a lot of cars. He's in the pits.
He is. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
Hard tyre, sorry to disappoint you all. It would have been great to put the soft tyre on and really go for it, but it's the offset. Oh no, that's a bit slow. A little bit slow. Was it the front left? The rear seemed okay, but there was a little bit of a delay at the front of the car. And
by about 1.5 seconds.
Well, it all counts, Crofty.
It does. There goes Leclerc. There goes Sainz into Abbey. The 2 Ferraris out in front again. Daniel Ricciardo has it's down towards the rear, has been lapped, and Lewis Hamilton behind him.
Yeah, and the slow pit stop, unfortunately, that's the difference. Instead of coming out amongst the Ferraris, he's ended up a reasonable chunk behind, albeit with fresher hard compound tyres on. So some more work to do now then for him, for Lewis Hamilton, but he'll be able to see them and he'll take a lot of satisfaction from that.
As it will be for all the drivers, not next season but the year after, because they're going to do away with tyre blankets, so the nice warmed tyres that greet the drivers for their pit stops are going to disappear. And well, the challenges will be something akin to what the drivers are facing here today. That's the pit stop crew. For once, not up to their 100% excellence, but the pressure of a Grand Prix and a pressure of a Grand Prix where they're racing for a win. This afternoon can take its toll on plenty of people, not saying it did there. But it's understandable.
Wing change he had is Sergio Perez has cruised up very nicely indeed, you have to say.
On those medium tyres, does can Perez continue to the end, or will he have to stop once more? You're absolutely right. His pace is
that way, so far behind.
So yeah, it's a stop with slow, and as soon as these tyres come in, we will have a good pace.
He's got to clear Daniel Ricciardo as well. But I think one of the reasons they brought Lewis in is he was catching 6 or 7 cars in the next few laps.
Sergio Perez doesn't stop again in this race, so he's done 46 laps on the set of medium tyres, which even for a man with the subtleties of the boots that Sergio Perez has, would be some achievement. Trying to work out if he's run 2 different compounds so far.
Yeah, he's got to stop. He's done a medium has Perez, so he'll have to stop again anyway. But Leclerc has just done the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, out in clear air at the front, got a lot of track ahead of him as well. So that's starting to look like a race-winning pace.
Esteban Ocon has Max Verstappen now just ahead of him. Max Verstappen, who at one stage was leading this race, has picked up bodywork damage, has lost pace and has been down in 8th place for quite some time. Has now got his old mucker Esteban Ocon right behind him, and when these two get together, things often get very tasty. Is Ocon going to make Take a dive into Abbey? No, he thinks against it on this occasion. Now the left hand king through Farm, and the next braking zone, Ocon just a bit too far back, or was maybe waiting patiently, Martin, for the end of the Wellington straight.
Yeah, Max has just got no grip, you can see it. No grip, really struggled to even keep it on the racing line in the final chicane into the pit straight.
So, to be fair, he could find himself Verstappen either 10th here or out of the points. The way this is going.
Yeah, go for 2%-ish from now.
Verstappen, he's been overtaken by Schumacher, he's going to be overtaken by Magnussen as well. He has got problems, Esteban Ocon.
I can't take it to the corners.
So he's in second gear. Has he got a hydraulic problem affecting the steering?
I'll tell you what, if he stops here, we'll get at least a virtual safety car.
Where can he pull over?
If he goes around the first corner and hard right, there's plenty of... no, he's going to stop.
There.
He's going to stop there.
That's a safety car.
There's got to be a safety car.
It's yellow flags, double waved yellows. We could get a safety car here. And boy, does that then make things very interesting, because that 6 seconds gap between Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton will get wiped out. And yes, we do have a safety car here at Silverstone, because Esteban Ocon has stopped on the old pit straight. And you know how I said things were starting to come to Lewis Hamilton? Well, add this one to the list of opportunities opening up.
To be fair to Lewis, we got a pit, we got double pit stop under the safety car to get some cheap pit stops to put the soft tyres on, presumably.
Well, you would think so, yes. So in comes Carlos Sainz, in comes Lewis Hamilton. Charles Leclerc stays out on the track. So it's soft tyres that are going on for Carlos Sainz, and imagine it's soft tyres as well for Hamilton in this one. They reacted very, very rapidly down at Mercedes, but they couldn't get Charles Leclerc in at Ferrari.
So they've split the strategy at Ferrari then. And of course, Sainz will just cruise right up to the back of Leclerc because there's no other traffic involved, as will Hamilton, for the restart. So that's hung Leclerc out to dry in many respects. So worked out beautifully for these two. And of course, you know, they will get scooped up. Leclerc will get scooped up by the safety. This is a full safety car, not a virtual safety car.
And it's worth saying, Sergio Perez, that has been timed beautifully for him, who gets like a free pit stop almost. We knew he had to stop again. Well, he not only pits, but he keeps hold of fourth place. Fernando Alonso is into the pits. Lando Norris is going to stay out. Sebastian Vettel, it's really helped him because he needed to stop again.
Are you sure this is the right tyre?
So no position loss.
I see the point. You know, what have we got to lose? We were third, and even if it's the wrong tyre, we'll be third. But Sainz has done the same thing anyway. Lewis is obviously very nervous about the longevity of these soft compound tyres.
But the warm-up of the hard compound tyre that we've seen so far means that it's obvious you need to change off that for a restart.
Yeah, Leclerc will be under a lot of pressure on the, you know, warming up used hard compound tyres.
In comes Verstappen too. Schumacher and Latifi have also pitted, and everyone's going to be truncated together for the last few laps of this British Grand Prix. We didn't have the sprint this year. Well, we've kind of got a mini sprint to the end once we get going, and it shouldn't take too long to push Esteban Ocon's car out of the way. Lapped cars could then unlap
and
themselves.
Hamilton behind with new soft.
That's going to be hard.
It is.
Because you're on the hard, sadly, for Charles Leclerc. We might get 9-10 laps of racing to go.
Yep.
The Alpine's been cleared.
Lewis is, they've been pretty unlucky with the safety car this year, and let's also mention Abu Dhabi last year, of course, so that one played into his hands, but Ferrari covered him off. Ted, what news have you got?
Sebastian Vettel did pit and went on to another set of mediums. Of course, he started the race on soft tyres, so he can go medium. So it's Lando as well. Don't forget Lando staying out. Daniel Ricciardo was the first McLaren in. The McLaren mechanics are still out in the pit lane, kind of thinking, well, does he come in? Is he coming in? Is he not? He is. He is pitting, Lando Norris. So, does he have the gap to pit? How many places is he going to lose?
So Fernando Alonso is just going through the Vale chicane at the moment. I think he has got the gap to pit. Those tyres of his are only 5 laps old, but I think they've got the gap, so it's worth going on to the soft because he would have been vulnerable.
Yeah. Let's see where this is compared to Fernando. It looks like he's is he? No, he's not.
Oh! He's lost 1 position then to Fernando Alonso as he comes out of the
but
pits.
this is McLaren's fight today, isn't it, with Alpine? I mean, it's been a bit of a lonely race, and you could say maybe Lewis Hamilton is thinking it would have been interesting to see what would have happened with that tyre offset on the newer hard tyres, but we'll never find out now. But for Lando and McLaren, they just wanted to beat Alonso and Alpine. They've done it already once today. Let's see if they can do it again.
So I've just been trying to work out, why do they not bring Charles Leclerc in when the safety car came out? I think they had about 6 seconds, Martin, to react, to tell Charles Leclerc to come into the pits. Now, sorry, about 10 seconds, I should say. Now, there's a 6-second gap to Hamilton, 4-second gap, or 2-second gap to Sainz. There was a bit more time to react for Sainz and for Hamilton. It might just be that Ferrari didn't have the time to react quickly enough, albeit, the minute we saw Ocon, we both thought to ourselves, there's going to be a safety car here.
Yeah. I don't know his exact track position, but as you say, they had certainly a reduced time. So Daniel Ricciardo.
Lapped cars may overtake.
And he had what I was about to say. So that's Ricciardo and Tsunoda, the only 2 lap drivers. We have 14 cars remaining in this race.
I know Verstappen has pitted onto fresher tyres, but given the damage to his bodywork, given his pace in the car, the safety car I don't think has helped him very much, because he has now got Mick Schumacher, Nicholas Latifi, Lance Stroll, Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda all breathing down his neck, and Tsunoda and Ricciardo, of course, on the lead lap.
Aston Martin done a good job, 7th and 9th from 18th and 20th on the grid. So they've had a somewhat better day.
Yes, and Sebastian Vettel very much helped by the time of that safety car on his birthday.
Did you copy that?
I didn't, to be fair, but I know that the safety car is ending. So we've got 1 more lap behind the safety car.
Yeah, safety car in this lap. I'm going to be a lot quicker than Charles, is what he said. So, well, he will, because, you know, Charles' hard compound tyres, put on a lap 25, are going to take some warming up. Because as they lose rubber, they take even longer to warm up.
Ted, down to you.
Yeah, so there's no decisions going to be made on team orders. We're going to have what I think we're all here for, Crofty, motor racing between the 2 Ferraris. But Sainz is not going to have a better chance to win this first Grand Prix than this, surely.
There might not be any more lifting and coasting for Carlos Sainz. That's going to be a help. His teammates on hard tyres, that's going to be a help. They can't orchestrate this Ferrari because they've got Hamilton breathing down their neck. By the way, Esteban Ocon, it was a fuel pump issue that caused him to stop, and his team boss Otmar Szafnauer to have his head in his hands on the pit wall. And we are going to have quite the finish here at Silverstone this afternoon. 2 Ferraris, a Mercedes. Don't discount out Sergio Perez from this either, because he's had his pit stop that he needed desperately, and he's on the soft tyre. Oh, and then you've got Alonso and Norris really going for it.
Yeah. also, just to explain why Sainz no longer has the safe fuel. Obviously, you use less fuel when you're trundling around behind the safety car. And if you're in that safety car, it's frightening you to death, trust me, the speed it's going. But for a Formula 1 car, it looks like they're just at a canter behind them.
This is going to get tasty between now and the checkered flag to decide the destiny of the British Grand Prix this year. And if you, I'll say it again, you go back 12 months, Martin, Charles Leclerc was leading until 3 laps before the end.
10 car lengths to charge and some breathing space. Within 10 car lengths.
But guys, I'm under pressure from Hamilton. Please don't ask these things. Please. Let's say stop inventing. Stop inventing. I'm under pressure also.
So he's obliged to stay within 10 car lengths. What they're saying is make it 10 car lengths and give Charles some breathing space.
But he has no breathing space because Hamilton is right on his tail.
Well, that's his point. Well, hang on a minute, stop making this up.
He's driving for himself. Ferrari drivers expected to drive for the team. And he's rightly saying there is more to lose by doing that. Let's just go racing. And look, he's trying to nudge Charles Leclerc round the corner as we get racing again. And Sergio Perez isn't far off Lewis Hamilton because he can make a charge in that Red Bull. Hamilton's going to be under pressure as Leclerc leads Sainz, leads Hamilton, leads Perez into Abbey.
Yeah, Hamilton struggled for grip off the last corner for some reason. That's put Perez onto him. Perez may have a go up the inside of turn 4, and he's going around the outside and switches back as well. Will he get better traction off the corner? He's got the line then.
Oh, and off the track goes Charles Leclerc as Carlos Sainz retakes the lead at this British Grand Prix. Hamilton and Perez are going wheel to wheel. Perez is ahead of Hamilton. Back comes Sainz and Leclerc. Leclerc behind his teammate Carlos Sainz, who at the restart didn't think about the team, thought about himself and wants to win a race for the first time. It is Carlos Sainz from Charles Leclerc. Then comes Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton back down in 4th. Alonso, Norris, Vettel, Verstappen, Magnussen and Schumacher making up the top 10. What a restart this has been.
Yeah, the Ferraris got away and Lewis just didn't seem to have any grip, and that put Perez right onto his tail. Perez in a podium position now, bizarrely after the race he's had. But this puts Sainz within a great chance to win his first Grand Prix.
Sergio Perez is now making a challenge on Charles Leclerc. Those hard tyres still needed to warm up, and the top 3 are moving away from Hamilton in 4th. It looked like it was opening up for the British driver, but he has lost out on a podium place so far. We're racing to lap 52. Sergio Perez, that safety car timed perfectly for him. What can he do now? Running in 3rd place and making a move potentially on Charles Leclerc. Hamilton has now found a bit more temperature in those tyres. He's gaining a bit on the Red Bull, and the top 4 separated by 2 seconds.
So we're looking at this battle, but look ahead of us as Sainz goes underneath his teammate. I think Leclerc ran wide on the curb on the outside, just as Perez is putting a move on Hamilton. We see the Ferrari swap. It was just out of the picture left. And the lead is he's going to have so much more grip. The curious thing is why Hamilton's Mercedes on a fresh set of soft tyres just looked all at sea in the first few corners.
Yep, but Perez on those same fresh set of rubber, Carlos Sainz on that same fresh set of rubber, and Hamilton and Perez going for it once again as we head now down the old pit straight towards Copse corner. It's a Mercedes behind a Red Bull. This time the Mercedes tries to go around the outside. Perez has him covered off.
What a bizarre race. It's all turned around for Ferrari. What they now need is for Leclerc to hold this pair up to give themselves a chance to win this Grand Prix with Sainz out front.
And what Carlos Sainz wanted was the win, the victory, and to race for himself, and that's what he got from Ferrari, and it is working out beautifully for the Scuderia at the moment as they race 1-2 with Perez under pressure from Hamilton behind. Alonso keeping up 5th place ahead of Lando Norris. Verstappen getting dropped back a little bit in 7th place. Sebastian Vettel coming at him, and then Mick Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen completing the points as through the Vale chicane we go once more, and Hamilton desperate to try and get past the Red Bull.
We've got 8 laps to go, including this one. So much can happen yet, but Leclerc now is going to play a key role as to whether Ferrari will get this victory up front, because I can't help but think if Perez and Hamilton got clear, they're going to have some great pace.
Well, absolutely. Perez is going to get DRS as well when we go through the first DRS zone on this lap.
All right, let's get Leclerc.
Here we go, down the Wellington straight. Hugh Bird, his race engineer, telling him that DRS is enabled, and this is where Charles Leclerc could be quite vulnerable, not just to Perez, but to Hamilton too.
But Leclerc now will be starting to warm. Oh, he's gone wide. Leclerc's gone wide in left field.
And Hamilton taking a different line to Perez as well. So who's got it right? Coming out of the exit, we head now down towards Copse corner at about 165 miles an hour. Through goes the Ferrari, through goes the Red Bull, through goes the Mercedes.
So Perez will have a great chance down Hanger Straight into Stoke corner. Leclerc is beginning to warm up those used hard compound tyres. If Perez can get a good release off of Beckett, he'll get the slipstream, and he's got the DRS. We saw the rear wing open. This is going to be very close into Stoke corner.
Yeah, Perez is catching Charles Leclerc. He takes him towards the inside. Perez on the inside. Charles Leclerc gives him just enough space. Can Perez squeeze past? They go wheel to wheel towards Vale now. Who's going to be last on the brakes? Leclerc has that inside line. Perez goes off the track, cuts the chicane. Off goes Leclerc. Through goes Hamilton. Unbelievable stuff coming out of the final corner. Perez and Leclerc going for it. Hamilton says thank you very much. Another thing opens up for him.
And Perez comes up the inside. He's taking the place back. Hamilton hangs it out around the outside. He's run out of road. Leclerc's still in the hunt as well.
So Leclerc trying to get that place back from Hamilton. He has. Hamilton was forced off the track. I wonder what will be said about that. But goes through Charles Leclerc, who's got DRS to pull away from Lewis Hamilton. And arriving on the scene, well, of course he is, Fernando Alonso and Lando Norris as well. 5 cars separated by about 20 metres here. Perez goes through. Hamilton gets just blocked a little bit by Leclerc. Here comes Fernando Alonso down towards Copse.
Hamilton had to get out of the throttle. He was pushed to the outside there, and Alonso then couldn't make anything of that. And off we go again. Absolutely extraordinary.
The stewards have noted Perez leaving the track and gaining an advantage. He didn't gain an advantage, he actually lost a place, but they've noted it nonetheless. They might have noted Charles Leclerc too. There's our race leader, Carlos Sainz. He's loving this. Everything's happening 4 seconds behind him, and he is on his way to his first ever victory. Behind him, Sergio Perez for Red Bull, after getting damage on the opening lap of the race, has now forced his way back in a second, and let's see what happened at the chicane.
So Perez cuts across the inside, doesn't actually take a place, loses a place. Nobody does keep the place against Leclerc, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So Perez, they might say he gained advantage by cutting the corner, because whilst he lost to Hamilton, he gained to Leclerc.
Just forcing Leclerc wide as well, and it just opened up beautifully for Lewis Hamilton there.
And Leclerc kept his position off Stoke corner by being all 4 wheels off the road as well.
And this is where Hamilton gets forced off the track. He does go all off the track. Perez left him no space there whatsoever to stay on the track, and in doing so, Hamilton goes off and then Leclerc zips through.
I don't have a problem with Perez there in that particular corner. That's pretty much the racing line out there, but he's gone into the corner, he's kept control of his car and taken the line.
Right, let's have some more of this, shall we? Sainz leads, Perez, then Leclerc, then Hamilton, and Hamilton is sticking to Leclerc as best he can. Driver of the day vote closes in 4 laps. I'll take your pick.
Good luck with that one.
Or just vote for the entire top 7. I don't know, top 6, top 7. You make your minds up on that one. We're on board now with Lewis Hamilton, who's going to try and pull off yet another overtake, and he's getting closer to the Ferrari, he's getting closer to the Ferrari, he's going to have to go round the outside at Stowe. Oh, thought for one moment he might get the chance. Leclerc forces him wide, and now it's down to braking at the Vale chicane. Leclerc's got that inside line for the first part of the chicane and covers off Hamilton to keep him at bay. 5 laps to go at the British Grand Prix. Hamilton trying to get on the podium for what will be a record-breaking 13th time at a single event, and Charles Leclerc is doing his damnedest to prevent that.
Lewis wasn't happy they put the soft tyres on, was he? And we know why now. The car's not really as alive as it was on those mediums.
It's a very good point. He probably might have been doing better lap times on the harder compound tyre. Sergio Perez is going faster than Carlos Sainz, but he's 3.5 seconds back. So you wonder, can he hold on? There goes Hamilton round the outside at Brooklands. No, can't get past there, but he forces Charles Leclerc wide, and now through Luffield, he's just inching ahead, urged on by the crowd, the roars of the crowd, willing Hamilton back onto the podium, and he does move up into third place. Can he hold that position though, going into Copse? They're going side by side, Leclerc and Hamilton through Copse. Wow, what great drama, what great entertainment. And there is Charles Leclerc still ahead of Lewis Hamilton.
Mega bravery from the pair of them, and full respect for how they kept the car under control through there. And Leclerc will not give up, despite his tyres.
He might have to now, though, because Hamilton's a lot closer, and DRS finally helping Hamilton get ahead and potentially stay ahead. And you can hear the roars of the crowd, whatever colour caps they're wearing. They are loving one British driver excelling against another, this time from Monaco, who's also excelling, but is also now under huge pressure from Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, and Lando Norris. Lando Norris is right in there as well, as Leclerc struggles for grip. Sainz 3.7 out front and matching Perez.
Well, he was 3.7 at the end of the last lap. It's 2.5 seconds now. So Hamilton's chasing after Perez. Perez very much chasing after Carlos Sainz as we look at Leclerc under pressure from the Alpine of Alonso, who is under pressure from the McLaren of Lando Norris. There's your race leader. There is your man in second. There's your man in third. Sainz, Perez, Hamilton.
And Carlos Sainz was absolutely right, wasn't he? Don't make me back the pack up. That's not the right way to do this. How right was he telling the team that, no, don't use me as a spoiler, I can win this.
And while all this is happening, the championship leader is Max Verstappen, and he's going to take a hit in his points tally in this race. So these contenders all fighting for the maximum points they can get, whilst Verstappen has a bad day at the office, and that is brilliant. Car control from both Leclerc and from Hamilton. That's how you take Copse.
That was very brave indeed.
Brave and precise and absolutely exhilarating. And Hamilton with DRS finally getting his man into Stowe. As we look back now to see Max Verstappen under pressure into Stowe from Mick Schumacher on the inside. Schumacher thought he had a chance there, might still have a chance as we head down towards the Vale chicane, and this is a fight for 8th place.
Yeah, could be his first World Championship points.
Could be his first championship points. So Verstappen currently in 7th, Mick Schumacher in 8th, then comes Vettel, then comes Magnussen on the restart. Vettel's lost a couple of places. I think everyone here, Martin, wants Mick Schumacher to score points and score good points this afternoon. Not because he'll beat Max Verstappen, but because he deserves it, because he's come so close recently.
Yeah, it'll be ever sweeter, won't it, if he manages to pass Verstappen with it. But he needs to make sure he keeps it clean. Doesn't want to be tripping over anything.
As down the Wellington Straight we go, and he's got a speed advantage because of the problem with the floor of that Red Bull, but it's not a speed advantage that can take him past Mick on this particular occasion. The gap out in front, 2.5 seconds between Sainz and Perez. I'll watch that while we watch the other Red Bull defending for all its might. And now is Mick Schumacher fast enough to try one down the inside at Copse? No, he hasn't quite got that straight line speed once again. Lewis Hamilton starting to catch Perez, just a little bit behind Sergio Perez, and we are approaching 2 laps to go.
Well, Perez, the Red Bull might be thinking, if we get a 5-second penalty in this race, we need to be more than 5 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton, so if they get a penalty.
Here comes Mick Schumacher, he's closer to Max Verstappen on this occasion, but he's not quite close enough to make a move through Stowe. I think Max Verstappen, when he came to the track this morning, thought he'd be fighting the closing stages with Mick Schumacher.
And it's just not fallen, has it, for Verstappen this weekend? He should have been on pole, wasn't, and he certainly had a great chance to win this race, wet or dry, and won't.
So 3.5 seconds, the gap between Sainz and Perez, just under 3 seconds, back to Lewis Hamilton, who's now pulled 2 seconds clear of Charles Leclerc after some terrific entertainment in the closing stages. The drivers saving their very best until last. Who's making moves further down the grid? Ricciardo is catching on Nicholas Latifi. Mick Schumacher, as we're watching, right behind Max Verstappen. Alonso right behind Charles Leclerc.
Sebastian Vettel will be happy in 9th, but also watching, he's almost got a parental sort of care over Mick Schumacher, hasn't he? and always wants to know where he is in the race, well, he'll know he's ahead of him.
Yeah, despite the contact in Miami, of course, where Schumacher went into Vettel and cost him chance on that occasion of scoring his first points in Formula One. Your race leader, Carlos Sainz, is approaching Stowe Corner. There he is. The Ferrari leads the Red Bull, but it's the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, who was second in the championship going into this race. Then comes Lewis Hamilton. After his podium in Montreal, he's on for a second successive podium here. Then comes Charles Leclerc, and he really does have Fernando Alonso for company, keeping him keen in these closing stages, as once again Schumacher has a little look on Max Verstappen, but there was nothing doing, and we are on to the final lap of this British Grand Prix, where Albon and Joe and Russell and Bottas and Gasly and Ocon have all retired, but those that have left have served up an absolute thriller here, where Carlos Sainz, twice led us away from pole position, has lost the lead but has regained the lead, and is on his way, Martin Brundle, to a first win in Formula One.
And I'm so happy for him. He deserves it. He's been brilliant, hasn't he, through so many races and qualifying, and he's had to play second fiddle in the Ferrari team to Charles Leclerc, and he was struggling at the beginning of the race, really struggling, but he kept it all together as Schumacher then.
He's going for it into Brooklands. Verstappen's on the inside. Schumacher is still sticking with him, runs out of road and almost makes contact with Max Verstappen. Whilst we watch Lewis Hamilton taking Copse corner, Schumacher just a little bit further back down the road thought he had Verstappen for one moment.
Yeah, Mick needs to absolutely not trip over anything. It's worth having a go at Max, but he needs to make sure there's not anything 50-50 about it. As Carlos Sainz said, just a few hundred metres to go.
So in Canada 2 weeks ago, a man making his 150th start won from pole position. Here at Silverstone, a fortnight later, a man making his 150th start from pole position is going to take victory. And for the first time in Formula One, Carlos Sainz is victorious. He wins the British Grand Prix. Sergio Perez, a brilliant recovery from him, takes second. Lewis Hamilton's on the podium for a 13th time here at Silverstone, a record-breaking 13th time, and Max Verstappen and Mick Schumacher fighting it all the way to the line behind Leclerc, Alonso and Norris. Verstappen comes home 7th, and Mick Schumacher takes his first points in Formula One ahead of Sebastian Vettel and Kevin Magnussen. What a British Grand Prix that was.
Both Hasses in the points. Hamilton does a fastest lap of the Grand Prix.
Wow,
a massively fast lap.
Vamos! Good job.
We did it. Yes! We did it. Yes! Vamos!
Bravo, Carlos.
Perez will not take a penalty, no further investigation. The stewards have decided, gaining an advantage there up against Leclerc. But Sainz called that, didn't he? Sainz was the one who was like, come on guys, you're getting this wrong. Do not use me to back up Hamilton and the rest of this crocodile behind me. I'm the one who's going to win this race. I've got the grip, I've got the tyres. Why Ferrari only pitted one of their cars, Charles Leclerc will be the man who most wants to know. Apparently they had 11 seconds of decision time before Leclerc passed the pit entry. But Sainz made it happen.
Fastest lap. Well done. Hell of a battle there, mate. Really impressive drive.
That was a tough one, guys. But great effort. We've got to sharpen up all round. But thanks so much for the hard work. Good points.
Yeah, copy Lewis. Yeah, well done, mate. Really great drive.
I think what Lewis is saying there, we could have won this race.
Yeah.
Sharpen up all round. Pit stop.
Slightly slower pit stop, wasn't it, for the second time? Sergio Perez right on his tail after that safety car. But, well, stories everywhere here. First and foremost, Joe Guan Yu been discharged from the medical centre, and no ill effects for a quite horrific crash right at the start of this race. Alex Albon taken by helicopter to Coventry Hospital for precautionary checks and we hope he's okay. I think he's actually back in the paddock now, so that's great to see as well. And that, brilliant to see. Mick Schumacher racing against Max Verstappen. We wondered when those points would come for Mick Schumacher, and at the 31st time of asking, they have done.
Hamilton
so
went for
another
30.5
Schumacher name on
last lap, but you try your best. It was a mega race.
Yeah, he can have that. I don't care today. I don't care. I don't care.
And thank you very much for this race.
Thank you, Ricky, for all the effort you put in this year. Thank you and the team, of course. Everyone. My first race winning Formula 1 and with Ferrari is you cannot imagine how it feels. And in Silverstone.
So happy for him.
Yeah.
So, and his dad and his family, lovely people, and he's kept the faith in himself.
So it was Italy in 2022, Monaco in 21, Bahrain, Monaco and Canada this year, where Carlos Sainz finished as runner-up. But you know what? There was a young man from Madrid who thought he could win, and he did. Carlos Sainz, victorious in his 150th Grand Prix start, climbs out of the cockpits in a few moments. That Ferrari cockpit to stand and acknowledge the crowd as a race winner in Formula 1 for the first time. And I tell you what, you can barely see his face, Martin, under that crash helmet, but you can feel that smile from miles around.
What a great race that was, wasn't it?
Can we come here every week?
Didn't know where to look next.
And I tell you what, driver of the day, Sergio Perez, 20% of the vote. It was a super recovery drive.
Yeah.
Got his pit stop at just the right time with the safety car, but never gave up the faith, did Checo today.
And another good move. Right, so there's Binotto saying, do not criticise the team about your pit stop, about whether we changed you around early enough. That was a finger wagging, wasn't it?
That was. That was you drive a Ferrari and remember that. And both drivers at various stages asking the team, to think again about the situation they found themselves in. Leclerc thinking he was very much the faster man earlier on in this race and wanting to be let past. Stefano Domenicali, the man responsible for Formula 1, in conversation with Joe Guan Yu, Freddie Vasseur, the Alfa Romeo team principal there too, making sure he's okay. And the Hamilton family, Anthony, Nicholas and Lewis, down in Parc Fermé. That is a 13th a 13th podium here at Silverstone. It's a record. You had a feeling there was going to be a record broken in some way, shape or form here today. But after all the drama, let's do some talking. Jenson Button is down with the mic in hand to interview Carlos Sainz.
Carlos Sainz, you are a race winner in Formula 1.
I don't know what to say. It's amazing. I mean, first race win, 150 races later with Ferrari in Silverstone. I cannot ask for more. It's a very special day, a day that I will never forget. A very special weekend in general. And thank you everyone for the support, for the cheers. Lewis was on it today, I heard. It was one of his days, but we managed to hold on, and I'm incredibly happy.
It seemed like one of those races that it threw everything at you. There were difficult times through it, but you stayed strong mentally, and you came through at the end.
Yeah, it was not easy. I struggled quite a bit with the balance, especially on the first stint with the medium tire. Max was forcing us to push a lot through the high speed. I opened the front left, but even with all that, I stayed believing that it could still happen. I needed to stay in the race like I was trying to, and then all of a sudden the safety car gave me the opportunity to get back on it, and we did it. You can imagine the nerves on that safety car restart, knowing it was my chance, and getting it done, and then in the win.
Well, you missed an epic race behind you. You were just out here.
Yeah, there was a lot going on, yeah.
Yeah, but congratulations. That was an epic win. Have you got a message for the crowd here?
Yes. Yeah, no, thank all of them, because, you know, Silverstone has been a bit of a special place for me. First ever race win here in Formula BMW back in 2010. First pole position here back in 2010, and suddenly 12 years later I achieved exactly the same, but in Formula 1 with Ferrari. So it's a special place for me, and I thank the whole crowd for being part of it and cheering me on.
Excellent, congratulations. Big round of applause for this man.
Thank you.
Checo! Wow, I did not see that coming. Congratulations, that was a great comeback after a very, very difficult first lap incident.
Yeah, it was a great comeback, you know, we didn't give up and we kept pushing. Then the opportunity came there at the end, and we just stood for it. It was a great fight with Charles, first of all, then with Lewis. I felt like I had the position, and then Lewis was there. It was just an epic final laps, but it was a good fight with Pinas.
So what happened on lap 1? Turn 3, there was a bit of contact?
Yeah, it was basically I just got a squeeze there.